Chapter 2852. The brat with the surname Zhang came again. Hearing this news, Xiao Qing and Song Xing's faces darkened. The two of them naturally did not fear the brat with the surname Zhang in the slightest. However, in order to avoid trouble, they chose to ignore him. After all, compared to him, the primogenitor's matters were more important, and Xiao Qing was not willing to expose his position for such a piece of trash. It was a pity that even though Xiao Qing had chosen to ignore him, the more this ant jumped, the more excited he became. This was probably what they meant by the ignorant are fearless. This was because they had never seen any experts before, and their cultivation had not reached Xiao Qing's level. They knew very little about the outside world and only saw the surrounding area. Let alone the world, they did not even know much about the dark awakened world. He was like a frog at the bottom of a well. The world he could see was only as big as the mouth of the well. Therefore, he naturally thought that the world was only that big. He did not understand the vastness of the world at all. Logically speaking, someone like him did not have the qualifications to come into contact with Xiao Qing and the others. Not only was the difference in their cultivation levels too great, but there were also other reasons that allowed them to come into contact with each other. Yet this toad wanted to eat swan meat. We can't go on like this. This guy comes every 2 or 3 days. It seems that we need to give him a warning, Song Xing said with a cold expression. Hearing this, Xiao Qing did not refuse this time. This brat surnamed Zhang had repeatedly come recklessly. He didn't need to give him a warning. Let Xiao Yao deal with it. In the end, Xiao Qing handed the matter to Xiao Yao. As the young master of the sacred palace, Xiao Yao's personality was very calm and steady, so it should not be difficult for her to deal with this. Moreover, Xiao Yao was more than enough to deal with a sect that only had a heaven realm expert. Song Xing did not refuse Xiao Qing's suggestion because Xiao Yao had indeed changed a lot in the past few years. Even Xiao Lao was no longer as impulsive as before. Without their father by their side, the two brothers had completely grown up. After handing the matter over to Xiao Yao, a young man was sitting on the main seat in the front hall with his head held high. His appearance could only be described as ordinary, but he gave people a feeling of arrogance. This young man was the young man with the surname Zhang who had been pestering Xiao Wan. His name was Zhang Kunlin, and his sect was called the Feng Lin sect. It was indeed the #1 sect in this area, but in the eyes of Xiao Qing and the others, it was simply too weak. Unfortunately, Zhang Kunlin knew nothing about this. This time, he came to look for Xiao Wan again. Ever since he saw Xiao Wan for the first time, Zhang Kunlin could not forget Xiao Wan and was completely attracted to her. Zhang Kunlin waited arrogantly for Xiao Wan. At the same time, in the backyard, Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and Xiao Wan also knew that Zhang Kunlin had come looking for them again. Xiao Yao also received orders from Xiao Qing to let him handle this matter. This reckless thing. Brother, let's just annihilate that *T Feng Lin sect. The hot-tempered Xiao Lao wanted to annihilate the Feng Lin sect immediately after knowing that Zhang Kunlin had come again. With the strength of the two brothers, annihilating the Feng Lin sect was simply a piece of cake. However, Xiao Yao shook his head and said, a mere Feng Lin sect is naturally nothing to be afraid of. However, we can't lose sight of the bigger picture for the sake of small gains and expose our existence. Xiao Yao had never placed Zhang Kunlin and the Feng Lin sect in his eyes. What Xiao Yao was really worried about was the origin world. If there wasn't the threat of the origin world, how could a clown like Zhang Kunlin keep jumping around? However, it seemed like his grandfather couldn't tolerate it anymore. Otherwise, he wouldn't have let him handle this matter. Therefore, Xiao Yao chuckled and said to Xiao Wan, who was at the side, speaking of which, isn't it because of Big Sister's natural beauty that completely attracted him? He was still in the mood to joke. Upon hearing this, Xiao Wan's expression remained indifferent, and he replied without any change in expression. I'm not interested in him. If it weren't for the big picture, I would have killed him long ago. Naturally, Xiao Wan wouldn't be interested in Zhang Kunlin. All these years, Xiao Wan had seen all kinds of geniuses. Even an ordinary disciple of the Sacred Palace was countless times more outstanding than Zhang Kunlin. To put it bluntly, Xiao Wan and Zhang Kunlin weren't on the same path. There shouldn't be any interactions between them. Xiao Yao smiled in response to Xiao Wan's indifferent reply. Then, she stood up and said, I'll go take a look. Xiao Lao, don't act recklessly. Since the matter had been handed over to her, Xiao Yao naturally had to settle it. However, before she left, she reminded Xiao Lao not to act recklessly. After all, this younger brother of hers was capable of doing anything. She was afraid that he would act rashly and destroy the Fenglin sect. That would be troublesome. Upon hearing Xiao Yao's words, Xiao Lao nodded unhappily. Then, Xiao Yao strode out of the backyard and came to the front hall to meet Zhang Kunlin. After waiting in the front hall for a long time, Zhang Kunlin still didn't see Xiao Wan. Just when Zhang Kunlin was about to lose his patience, Xiao Yao strode in. Zhang Kunlin obviously knew Xiao Yao. When he saw Xiao Yao, he also stood up and smiled. Brother Xiao Yao, why isn't your sister here? Knowing that Xiao Yao was Xiao Wan's younger brother, Zhang Kunlin said with a smile. Xiao Yao smiled in response. Zhang Kunlin, actually, it's impossible between you and my sister. What's the point of pestering her like this? Once these words came out, Zhang Kunlin's face instantly turned gloomy. Although Xiao Wan had indeed never looked at him directly from the start, these words were still incomparably ear-piercing to Zhang Kunlin's ears. Zhang Kunlin's face turned ashen as he said coldly, Xiao Yao, what do you mean by this? Is your Xiao clan looking down on my Fenglin sect? As expected, he used the Fenglin sect as an excuse. If it was someone else, they would probably be suppressed by the Fenglin sect. However, in Xiao Yao's opinion, the Fenglin sect didn't possess any threat at all. Therefore, when facing Zhang Kunlin, Xiao Yao only smiled faintly. It doesn't matter if we look down on you or not. It's just a word of advice. Xiao Yao, I think your Xiao clan doesn't know what's good for you. Today, I'll make it clear. I like Xiao Wan. Your Xiao clan must marry Xiao Wan to me. Otherwise, your Xiao clan can forget about existing. This was a blatant threat. Moreover, he was using the entire Xiao clan to threaten Xiao Yao. In the face of such a threat, not only was Xiao Yao not afraid, but she was also secretly amused. A mere Fenglin sect actually wanted to destroy the Xiao clan? What a joke. Putting everything else aside, any random servant in this mansion was an expert from the Sacred Palace. Any one of them was enough to destroy the Fenglin sect. Yet, Zhang Kunlin actually dared to threaten them. He really didn't know how to write the word death. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 28:53. This Zhang Kunlin in front of him had already lost his mind and acted recklessly. Originally, he wanted to persuade Zhang Kunlin. It would be best if Zhang Kunlin could listen to him. Then, everyone would be safe and sound. But now, it seemed that wanting Zhang Kunlin to listen to him was simply playing the lute to a cow. The corners of Zhang Kunlin's lips curled into a faint smile. Sensing the smile on Xiao Yao's face, Zhang Kunlin asked curiously, What are you smiling at? I'm smiling at how some people don't know the difference between life and death. Xiao Yao's words infuriated Zhang Kunlin instantly. However, before he could speak again, a terrifying aura surged from Xiao Yao's body. Besides, the surrounding space had been confined by Xiao Yao from the start. At this very moment, everything that happened in this room wouldn't be known to the outside world, let alone the slightest bit of aura leaking out. Facing Xiao Yao's sudden burst of pressure, Zhang Kunlin was stunned on the spot. With his level, it was naturally impossible for him to come into contact with an expert like Xiao Yao. After all, even his father was only a Sky Realm expert and couldn't be compared to Xiao Yao at all. Stunned, he opened his mouth but couldn't utter a single word. In this regard, Xiao Yao had already lost her patience. A scoundrel like Zhang Kunlin would only be a scourge if she kept him alive. Besides, since he was courting death, he couldn't blame anyone else. The smile on Xiao Yao's face grew increasingly sinister as she approached Zhang Kunlin step by step. Zhang Kunlin, there's a saying that goes, you refuse to take the path to heaven, but barge into hell. Do you know what it means? You dare to kill me? My father is the sect leader of the Fenglin sect. If you kill me, My father won't let you off. From Xiao Yao, Zhang Kunlun clearly sensed a strong murderous intent. This person before him wanted to kill him. Zhang Kunlun was horrified. Facing the threat of death, he could only use his father to threaten her. In this area, the Fenglin sect definitely had a great reputation. If it were anyone else, they would probably be fearful. But it was a pity that Xiao Yao wasn't one of them, let alone a mere Fenglin sect. Even if it was the overlord faction of a nightmare-awakened world, Xiao Yao would not fear them. After all, what level of existence was this sacred palace? That was a colossus that could compete with the overlords of the nightmare world. Not to mention, was the nightmare-awakened world one of the many universes? His strength was still at the bottom, far inferior to the Great Thousand Worlds. If it was before, at its peak, it was not impossible for the Divine Palace to conquer the awakened world. Zhang Kunlun had no idea what kind of existence Xiao Yao was. He was still using his father to threaten her. Little did he know that his words were heard by Xiao Yao. It was just a joke. Don't worry, your father will go down to accompany you soon. Now, I'll have to trouble you to go first. As she spoke, Xiao Yao tapped out with her finger, and an azure light flashed. Facing Xiao Yao's attack, an extreme aura of death instantly covered Zhang Kunlun's body. In his terror, Zhang Kunlun hurriedly cried out, "Don't kill me." At the last moment, Zhang Kunlun was indeed afraid, but it was a pity that Xiao Yao did not give him a chance. Since she had already attacked, she would not show mercy. This was something that Xiao Yao had learned from her father. Zhang Kunlun was instantly killed. At the same time, the sharp sword Qi destroyed Zhang Kunlun's corpse, leaving only a puddle of blood on the ground. Zhang Kunlun's corpse could not be seen at all. Killing Zhang Kunlun was a piece of cake for Xiao Yao. After doing all of this, Zhang Kunlun removed the restrictions around the room and walked out. He then said to a sacred palace expert waiting outside, "Tidy up. Yes, young master." The rest of the matters would naturally be handled by the sacred palace, but killing Zhang Kunlun was just the beginning. Next, there was still the Fenglin sect. Xiao Yao would not be soft-hearted. On the way back to the backyard, Xiao Yao saw that Xiao Lao had returned. He hurriedly went up and asked, "Brother, how was it?" "Killed." "Good kill. All right, one Zhang Kunlun is not worth mentioning, but we still have to deal with the Fenglin sect. Tonight, you will go with me to the Fenglin sect." Xiao Yao still wanted to make a move on the Fenglin sect. Hearing this, Xiao Lao naturally would not object. If it wasn't for Xiao Yao stopping him, Xiao Lao would have already destroyed the dog's-hit Fenglin sect. Now that Xiao Yao was preparing to make a move on the Fenglin sect, Xiao Lao could not wait to raise both hands in agreement. How could he refuse? Xiao Yao smiled and shook his head, not saying much. At the same time, Xiao Wan also walked over and asked, "You killed Zhang Kunlun. Will there be any trouble?" "There will definitely be, but there will be more trouble if we don't kill him. Since we are not taking the initiative to attack, there shouldn't be a problem to destroy the Fenglin sect." Xiao Yao definitely didn't kill Zhang Kunlun on impulse. Instead, she made the choice after weighing the pros and cons. Killing Zhang Kunlun would indeed cause some trouble, but leaving him alive would cause more trouble. Moreover, with Zhang Kunlun's persistent and shameless character, who knew what kind of trouble he would cause in the future? Hence, killing him directly was the most time-saving and energy-efficient method. Although doing so might incur the wrath of the Fenglin sect, so what? They could just wipe him out together. At that time, they could plan a little and shift the suspicion to someone else. It shouldn't be too difficult to do so. After all, in the eyes of outsiders, their Shao clan didn't have the ability to destroy the Fenglin sect overnight. Therefore, there wouldn't be many people suspecting them. Hearing Xiao Yao's words, Xiao Wan nodded. "All right, I will go with you guys tonight." This matter had arisen because of him, so Xiao Wan wanted to go with Xiao Yao and his brother. Xiao Yao didn't refuse. After all, Xiao Wan was stronger than the two of them and would be able to help. Xiao Yao didn't report this matter to Xiao Qing, and Xiao Qing didn't ask too much. With regard to his grandson's ability, Xiao Qing still had a lot of trust. Moreover, a small Fenglin sect was very easy for Xiao Yao to deal with. It was indeed something that could be easily dealt with, but there were always changes. Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao evidently didn't expect that a small Feng Lin sect would draw out such a massive existence from the nightmare awakened world, causing them to fall into an extremely dangerous forbidden area. It was really not a bad idea to publicize it. It was worth it. After all, there were many sources of books, and they could be updated quickly. Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and Xiao Wan didn't know about these things. Only when night fell did Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and Xiao Wan use the cover of the night to secretly leave the city and rush towards the Feng Lin sect, begging for bookmarks, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2854. In the night, Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and Xiao Wan quickly rushed towards the Feng Lin sect. The Feng Lin sect wasn't too far away, so it didn't take much time for the three of them to arrive at the Feng Lin sect. In the night, Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and Xiao Wan quickly rushed towards the Feng Lin sect. The Feng Lin sect wasn't too far away, so it didn't take much time for the three of them to arrive at the Feng Lin sect. Although it was already late at night, the Feng Lin sect was still quite lively. The lights were brightly lit, and the disciples in the sect were also cultivating. They gathered in groups of 3 to 5 and chatted. With regard to a small sect like the Feng Lin sect, Xiao Yao and the other two naturally didn't have much interest in it. To put it bluntly, such a sect couldn't even enter the eyes of the three of them. Kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive. After this, we'll make some arrangements and disguise it as the work of other sections. Hidden in the void, Xiao Yao calmly said. Since they had already taken action, they definitely had to leave no one alive. They couldn't be soft-hearted. Otherwise, if news of this spread, it wouldn't be good for the Xiao clan. After all, Xiao Chun still didn't know what was going on. Before Xiao Chun came out of seclusion and left the land of creation, Xiao Yao and the others still had to continue hiding and not expose their identities. Hearing Xiao Yao's words, Xiao Lao and Xiao Wan both nodded in agreement. Then, Xiao Yao took the lead and directly sealed the surrounding space. If not, the people outside would notice what was happening here. With the space sealed, the battle and aura wouldn't spread out. Unless there was someone with a cultivation base higher than Xiao Yao. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to notice what was happening inside. Moreover, on this continent, there weren't many people stronger than Xiao Yao, let alone appearing in such a desolate place. Therefore, Xiao Yao wasn't worried about being exposed. After doing all this, Xiao Yao took the lead and sent a palm strike towards the Feng Lin sect below. The surging spiritual energy instantly condensed into a huge palm in the air. It was like a mountain that ruthlessly pressed down on the Feng Lin sect. The sudden scene didn't give the Feng Lin sect disciples any time to react. Looking at the huge palm descending from the sky, everyone was stunned. To them, this was simply a scene of the end of the world. They didn't understand that someone could be so strong to such an extent that a single palm strike had such might. At the same time, many experts of the Feng Lin sect sensed Xiao Yao's attack. SSS Feng Lin sect. SSSS Feng Lin sect. At the same time, they sensed Xiao Yao's attack. Feng Lin's Feng's, the Feng S sex. Feng SSSS Feng Feng sect sex. Assessed. S's S.A. Judging from the aura alone, Zhang Kunlin's father knew that the strength of this person was unreasonably strong. Even if the entire Feng Lin sect was mobilized, they wouldn't be able to contend against this person. Therefore, the moment he opened his mouth, he immediately admitted defeat. However, it was obvious that Zhang Kunlin's father's admission of defeat was of no use. The huge spiritual energy palm still ruthlessly slammed down. In an instant, the entire Feng Lin sect became a living hell. Countless disciples were directly extinguished by this palm. Even those who were lucky enough to escape were injured. This was merely the power of a single palm. At the same time, Xiao Luo and Xiao Wan had yet to make their moves. Seeing that his sect was almost destroyed by a single palm strike, Zhang Kunlin's father was furious. However, he could only suppress his anger and come before Xiao Yao and the other two. When he saw the appearance of Xiao Yao and the other two, he was completely stunned. This was because he knew the identity of Xiao Yao and the other two. Back then, when Zhang Kunlun was pestering Xiao Wan, he had secretly investigated Xiao Yao and the other two siblings. Now that he met them, Zhang Kunlun's father said in disbelief, "You guys, seems like sect leader knows us? If that's the case, things will be easier. Today we are here for one thing, and that is to annihilate the Feng sect." Before Zhang Kunlun's father finished his words, Xiao Yao directly interrupted. Feeling the powerful aura from Xiao Yao, Zhang Kunlun's father felt that it was extremely surreal. How could she be so strong? He couldn't determine the exact cultivation base of Xiao Yao and the other three because the difference in strength was too great. However, Zhang Kunlun's father was certain that these three young men were godlike existences that he and the entire Feng Lin sect couldn't resist. It was laughable that his son wanted to pursue Xiao Wan. How could such a person take a liking to a mere young sect leader of the Feng Lin sect? Thinking of his son, Zhang Kunlun's father suddenly realized that Xiao Yao and the other two siblings had personally come to the Feng Lin sect. Today, Zhang Kunlun even went to the Xiao clan, but there wasn't any trace of his son. In that case, the answer was obvious. Zhang Kunlun was definitely dead. Thinking of this, Zhang Kunlun's father asked with a gloomy expression, "My son is dead." That's right. Originally, our Xiao clan didn't want to offend the Feng Lin sect, but we had no choice. Zhang Kunlun kept pressuring us, and we could only take action. Haha, so that's the case. Previously, I still felt that it was strange. Your Xiao clan is just an outsider, but you guys were able to gain a foothold in the city overnight. So it turns out that you guys were hiding your strength. The Xiao clan suddenly appeared here. This was something that everyone knew. Moreover, the Xiao clan gained a foothold in the city overnight, causing the other major clans to not dare to offend them. Of course, the Xiao clan usually kept a low profile and tried their best not to have any disputes with other major clans. Therefore, the situation was considered stable. But now that he thought about it, the Xiao clan was indeed very mysterious. No one knew the origin of this group of people, and no one would have thought that the Xiao clan was actually so powerful. Just three of the younger generation had such powerful strength, not to mention the older generation. Who exactly are you guys? Zhang Kunlun's father questioned angrily. The origin of the Xiao clan was definitely not simple. To this, Xiao Yao naturally wouldn't answer. She only shook her head and said, "No comment." "All right, sect leader, you can be on your way. Your son is still waiting for you." After saying that, Xiao Yao directly made her move. Although Zhang Kunlun's father was in the Sky Realm, he still didn't have the strength to fight back in front of Xiao Yao. Xiao Yao casually pointed out a finger. Zhang Kunlun's father wanted to resist, but unfortunately, everything he did was just a joke in Xiao Yao's eyes. His defense was as weak as a piece of paper. Just like his son, Zhang Kunlun was also shrouded in a dense aura of death. Until this moment, Zhang Kunlun finally understood what kind of existence he and his son had provoked. Back then, when Zhang Kunlun said that he had his eyes on Xiao Wan, he didn't stop him and allowed Zhang Kunlun to pester him. But now, because of this matter, the entire Feng Lin sect was in trouble. If he knew that this would be the outcome, he wouldn't have let his son provoke Xiao Wan, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2855. Zhang Kunlun's father regretted it at the last moment, but unfortunately, it was all too late. As Xiao Yao's attack landed, Zhang Kunlun's father was killed without any resistance. Zhang Kunlun's father regretted it at the last moment, but unfortunately, it was all too late. As Xiao Yao's attack landed, Zhang Kunlun's father was killed without any resistance. Even the sect master was killed with a single finger. The remaining disciples and elders of the Feng Lin sect were all scared out of their wits. They wanted to escape frantically, but unfortunately, the surrounding space had long been sealed by Xiao Yao. There was no way for them to escape at all. After killing Zhang Kunlun's father, Xiao Yao said to Xiao Lao and Xiao Wan, "Hurry up or something might happen." Destroying a small Feng Lin sect was naturally not a big deal to Xiao Yao and the rest. Hearing that, Xiao Lao and Xiao Wan nodded. However, Just as the two of them were about to make a move, Xiao Yao's restriction was actually broken by someone. Sensing that the surrounding space restriction had been broken, Xiao Yao's expression changed. This was because ordinary people had no way of breaking her restriction unless there was someone with a higher cultivation base. At the thought of an expert appearing here, Xiao Yao's expression changed drastically. After all, this wasn't good news. Moreover, the news of the Feng Lin sect destruction couldn't be spread out. Otherwise, there would be a great risk of their identities being exposed. The sudden change caught Xiao Yao off guard. At the same time, after the restriction was broken, a black-clothed middle-aged man appeared before Xiao Yao and the rest. His gaze locked on a Xiao Yao's group as he spoke calmly. "Wantonly killing. Who are the three of you?" The middle-aged man obviously sensed the existence of Xiao Yao's group at the first moment. When Xiao Yao's group looked at the middle-aged man, their expressions instantly turned grave. This was because, judging from the middle-aged man's aura, he was an Ancestor Realm expert. An Ancestor Realm expert had actually appeared in this remote and desolate place. This was obviously not good news. Or perhaps the matter of the Xiao clan had been exposed. It should be known that in any universe, an Ancestor Realm expert basically represented an overlord force, because only an overlord force was worthy of having an Ancestor Realm expert. For example, in the vast thousand domains, all Ancestor Realm experts came from the Sacred Palace, and other forces were not allowed to have an Ancestor Realm expert. But a progenitor just had to appear before him. In that case, actually, Xiao Yao and the others were wrong. This Ancestor Realm expert didn't come here on purpose, but by chance. However, he sensed that something was happening in the Feng Lin sect, and thus rushed over. When he saw Xiao Yao and the other two massacring the people of the Feng Lin sect, he chose to make a move. However, his identity was just as Xiao Yao and the others had guessed. He was from the Great Rock Palace, one of the Overlord factions in the Nightmare Awakened world. The Great Rock Palace was an Overlord faction in the Nightmare Awakened world, and it was a faction created by the World Master. Its status was on par with the Sacred Palace in the vast thousand domains. They didn't expect to encounter someone from the Great Rock Palace here. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, Xiao Yao was silent for a moment before saying, "Senior, we didn't act on impulse. We were forced to do so. Since they had encountered an expert from the Great Rock Palace, they couldn't pretend that nothing had happened." As such, Xiao Yao stood up and explained. At the same time, Xiao Yao secretly contacted Xiao Qing, Song Xing, and the others and told them about the appearance of the Great Rock Palace expert. Hearing Xiao Yao's words, the middle-aged man didn't appreciate it and only coldly snorted, "Humph, the truth is right in front of you, and you still want to quibble?" This king sees that the three of you aren't very old and have outstanding talent, but you're vicious and merciless. With such temperaments, if you're allowed to grow, you'll definitely become a disaster. It seems that this king will be enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens today. The middle-aged man didn't give Xiao Yao a chance to explain. From how he saw it, with Xiao Yao and the others' strength, they shouldn't have attacked the Feng Lin sect. After all, the Feng Lin sect only had a Heaven Realm ant, and it couldn't compare to Xiao Yao and the others at all. As for what Xiao Yao said about being forced into a corner, the middle-aged man didn't believe it at all. With the three of them strength, how could the Feng Lin sect pose any threat to them? As such, the middle-aged man was certain that Xiao Yao and the others were bloodthirsty people with evil intentions. Facing the weak, they were merciless. Looking at the Feng Lin sect's disciples, who were either dead or severely injured, it could be seen how savage Xiao Yao and the others were. As the Ancestor Realm expert of the Great Rock Palace and the overlord of the entire Nightmare Awakened world, the middle-aged man felt that he had a duty to uphold justice. Moreover, Xiao Yao and the other two possessed such cultivation and strength at such a young age. As such, their identities were definitely not simple. The middle-aged man was also very interested to know what kind of power existed behind the three of them. If it was said that there was no one behind Xiao Yao and the others, the middle-aged man wouldn't believe it. Without someone nurturing them, the three of them couldn't have grown to such a level. Moreover, the faction that could nurture such geniuses wouldn't be some nameless faction. In short, the middle-aged man was more interested in the faction or person behind Xiao Yao and the others. For some reason, the middle-aged man instinctively felt a trace of threat. Hearing this, Xiao Yao frowned. The middle-aged man was so arbitrary and didn't want to listen to his explanation. Things suddenly became a little complicated. Moreover, at the same time, when the middle-aged man appeared, many of the Feng Lin sect's disciples also took advantage of the chaos to flee. Right now, it was already too late for Xiao Yao to chase after them. As the saying went, plans couldn't keep up with changes. Originally, destroying the Feng Lin sect was a small matter, but who would have thought that during this process, Xiao Yao and the others would encounter someone from the Great Rock Palace? Moreover, it was an Ancestor Realm expert. As such, things became very complicated. The situation had completely deviated from expectations. Putting aside the fact that many of the Feng Lin sect's disciples had run away, just this middle-aged man alone wasn't easy to deal with. After all, he was an Ancestor Realm expert. Moreover, once they fought, the situation would be very difficult to control. Xiao Yao didn't want things to get out of hand. Unfortunately, the middle-aged man didn't give Xiao Yao a chance at all. He had already decided to capture Xiao Yao and the others first, and then get to know the people behind them. He wanted to know who exactly could nurture geniuses like Xiao Yao and the others. With this thought, the middle-aged man attacked without hesitation. Although Xiao Yao and the others were quite talented, they were still young and couldn't fight against him, who was an Ancestor Realm expert. "Let me capture you first, then we'll talk." As he spoke, he had already attacked Xiao Yao and the others. However, at this moment, an aura that had also reached the Ancestor Realm appeared. Then, Songxing appeared before the middle-aged man and blocked his attack. The two Ancestor Realm experts fought. With just one exchange, the middle-aged man's attack was successfully blocked by Songxing and the others. He didn't hurt Xiao Yao and the others at all. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 2856. Songxing's sudden appearance allowed Xiao Yao and the others to breathe a sigh of relief. However, the current situation was still not optimistic. After all, if the people of Great Rock Palace found out about this, then the existence of the Xiao family would probably be hard to hide. Songxing's sudden appearance allowed Xiao Yao and the others to breathe a sigh of relief. However, the current situation was still not optimistic. After all, if the people of Great Rock Palace found out about this, then the existence of the Xiao family would probably be hard to hide. However, now was not the time to worry about this. They had to deal with the middle-aged man in front of them first. Similarly, when the middle-aged man saw Songxing, his expression changed and a trace of seriousness appeared in his eyes. The sudden appearance of an unfamiliar Ancestor Realm master was definitely not a small matter for Great Rock Palace. After all, this was an Ancestor Realm master, not a Dao Transformation Realm or Emperor Realm master. One had to know that in any universe, Ancestor Realm masters could be said to be cornerstone existences. The sudden appearance of an unfamiliar Ancestor Realm master was obviously enough to pose a threat to Great Rock Palace. "Who are you?" The middle-aged man stared at Songxing and asked in a deep voice. In the Nightmare Awakened world, any Ancestor Realm master could only come from one place, and that was Great Rock Palace. After all, if other forces also had Ancestor Realm masters, they would definitely pose a threat to Great Rock Palace's rule. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, Songxing said calmly, "We have no enmity towards Great Rock Palace, nor do we pose a threat. This is just a misunderstanding. Friend, why don't we sit down and talk?" Songxing indeed had no intention of becoming enemies with Great Rock Palace. Moreover, they did not appear here because they coveted the Nightmare Awakened world, so it was naturally best not to become enemies with them if possible. However, Songxing took the initiative to express goodwill, but the middle-aged man did not appreciate it. Therefore, after hearing this, the middle-aged man only coldly replied, "If you want to talk, we can talk in my Great Rock Palace." If he wanted Songxing to follow him back to Great Rock Palace, Song Shing would definitely not agree. After all, if they went to Great Rock Palace, things would be even more out of control. Moreover, even if Song Shing was an Ancestor Realm Master, he still did not have much ability to protect himself in Great Rock Palace. Not to mention the other Ancestor Realm Masters in Great Rock Palace. Just the World Master of the Nightmare Awakened World was not someone that Song Shing could deal with. Therefore, it was impossible for him to go to the Great Rock Palace. He rejected it without even thinking. If I go to Great Rock Palace, we'll be able, of course, of Great Rock Palace, Song Shing's. Great, Song Shing of Great, S of Rock Palace. Of Great, of Sro, the middle-aged Song Rox's. After saying that, the middle-aged man prepared to attack again. An unfamiliar Ancestor Realm Master had suddenly appeared, and Great Rock Palace had not received any information before. This was simply terrifying. Subjectively, they had already regarded Song Shing as an enemy. Facing the middle-aged man's attack, Song Shing naturally would not allow himself to be captured without a fight. He immediately counterattacked, and for a time, the two Ancestor Realm Masters fought fiercely. Xiao Yao and the others could not interfere in the battle between Ancestor Realm Masters. Looking at the fierce battle between Song Shing and the middle-aged man, Xiao Yao was only stunned for a moment before she said to Xiao Lao and Xiao Wan, who were beside her, with a bitter smile, "Looks like things have gotten out of hand this time." No one had expected to encounter an Ancestor Realm Master of Great Rock Palace at this juncture. Originally, everything had been going smoothly, but such an accident had happened. In response, Xiao Wan comforted, "It's not your fault. No one would have expected such an unforeseen event." Indeed, Xiao Yao couldn't be blamed for this matter. He couldn't have foreseen this. However, the middle-aged man was obviously hostile towards them. Once he passed the news back to the Great Rock Palace, things would become even more troublesome at that time. However, if she killed him, the matter would become even more troublesome. The death of an Ancestor Realm Master was definitely not a small matter. Great Rock Palace would definitely investigate to the end. At that time, the Shao clan would definitely be exposed. For a time, they were in a dilemma. However, just as Xiao Yao was pondering, Nangongguan suddenly arrived. The middle-aged man, who was in the midst of a fierce battle, sensed the appearance of another Ancestor Realm Master, and a trace of panic and shock appeared in his eyes. The sudden appearance of an unfamiliar Ancestor Realm Master was already inconceivable to the middle-aged man, but now that a second person had appeared, it was even more difficult for him to accept. After all, Ancestor Realm experts were not cabbages that could be found on the streets. Even in the entire Dark Awakened world, the number of Ancestor Realm experts could be counted with one's fingers. However, two Ancestor Realm experts had suddenly appeared in front of him. "Let's attack together and capture him first." Nangongguan did not waste any words and directly said, no matter what, they had to capture this middle-aged man first and delay the Great Rock Palace from finding out about what had happened, giving everyone time to prepare. Hearing Nangongguan's words, Song Shing did not refuse and nodded. Following this, the two of them worked together, planning to capture this middle-aged man alive. Fighting 1 against 2, and both of them were Ancestor Realm cultivators, the middle-aged man was naturally not a match for them. "You're not from the Dark Awakened world? Just who are you? And why have you come to the Dark Awakened world?" The middle-aged man furiously asked as he did his best to defend. Seeing two Ancestor Realm experts suddenly appear, the middle-aged man quickly realized that they could not be from the Dark Awakened world. After all, breaking through to the Ancestor Realm was incredibly difficult. Moreover, it was impossible for the Great Rock Palace not to have noticed the divine punishment when breaking through to the Ancestor Realm. As such, there was only one explanation, which was that Song Shing and Nangongguan were not from the Dark Awakened world, but from another universe. An outsider Ancestor Realm expert was an even greater threat, especially when the outside world was so chaotic. The origin world was madly trying to create a new world, so it was inevitable that people would think about it. However, in response to the middle-aged man's question, Song Shing and Nangongguan did not reply. Now was not the time to talk. They had to capture him first. They definitely could not kill him, because once they did, they would become enemies with the Great Rock Palace. When the World Master of the Dark Awakened World appeared, everyone would be in even more danger. However, capturing him and stalling for time would not be a problem. What Song Xing and Nan Gongguan needed to do was capture this middle-aged man alive. Seeing that the middle-aged man was gradually suppressed, Song Xing and Nan Gongguan attacked even more viciously, wanting to end this battle as soon as possible. In response, the middle-aged man was furious, but there was nothing he could do. Fighting two people by himself was simply too difficult, so he could only inwardly curse. Damn it. Please add this to your collection, monthly votes, and recommendations. Chapter 2857. The middle-aged man knew that he had no chance of winning against Song Xing and Nan Gongguan at the same time. Moreover, he had sustained injuries from the fierce battle, and the result was obvious if he continued to fight. The middle-aged man knew that he had no chance of winning against Song Xing and Nan Gongguan at the same time. Moreover, he had sustained injuries from the fierce battle, and the result was obvious if he continued to fight. Without much hesitation, the middle-aged man took Nan Gongguan's attack head-on and instantly retreated, fleeing into the distance without any hesitation. He was trying to escape. Song Xing and Nan Gongguan naturally wouldn't let him off so easily. They hurriedly chased after him, and the three disappeared into the horizon one after another. Xiao Yao and the others couldn't help much as they watched the three leave one after another. They looked down at the Fenglin sect below and saw that it was basically destroyed. Let's go back first, Xiao Yao said in a deep voice. The middle-aged man's matter could only be left to Song Xing and Nan Gongguan. Xiao Yao and the others couldn't catch up to the three of them, and even if they did, they wouldn't be of much help. They might even distract Song Xing and the others, so Xiao Yao suggested that they return first. Xiao Lao and Xiao Luan didn't have any objections, and the three of them quickly returned to the city. When they returned to the Xiao clan's mansion, the three of them were immediately brought to the main hall by Xiao Qing. Apart from Xiao Qing, there was also a group of Sacred Palace experts in the main hall. Grandfather, Xiao Qing gloomily called out. Xiao Qing didn't blame the three of them, and he only nodded in response. It's not your fault. No one expected to meet someone from the Great Peng Hall here. Xiao Qing didn't blame Xiao Yao and the others. He waved his hand and gestured for them to take a seat, and the group began to discuss what to do next. However, it didn't take long for Song Xing and Nan Gongguan to return. Looking at the ugly expressions on their faces, everyone knew that the Ancestor Realm expert from the Great Rock Palace had escaped. Even with the two of them working together, they were still unable to take down the middle-aged man. After a round of pursuit, the middle-aged man finally managed to escape. As a result, the news would soon reach the ears of the Great Rock Palace, and the situation would become even more dangerous. Although the crowd felt somewhat regretful about such an outcome, they were no exception. After all, they were all Ancestor Realm experts. Even if Song Xing and Nan Gongguan had joined hands, if the other party was determined to escape, the two of them would not be able to do much. Right now, everyone could only discuss what to do next. Since the Great Rock Palace had discovered them, they would definitely rush over here. What should they do then? Should they fight the Great Rock Palace head-on, or should they retreat before the Great Rock Palace's people arrive? But even if they did, where could they go? The outside world was also extremely dangerous. Moreover, the Origin World had never stopped capturing them. Once the Origin World found any clues, it would be even more dangerous. Compared to the Great Rock Palace, the Origin World was clearly more difficult to deal with. In other words, it was impossible to deal with. At the same time, on the largest continent in the Nightmare World, the Great Rock Palace was located. It was already late at night, but the upper echelons of the Great Rock Palace were gathered in the main hall. These people were all Ancestor Realm experts of the Great Rock Palace. There were a total of 8 of them. At this moment, the 8 of them had gathered together, and the old man in the lead spoke with a grave expression. You should have received the news from Qi Kuan, right? Yes, foreign Ancestor Realm experts. This is indeed not a small matter. I just don't know which universe these people came from, and what their goal is. AI. It's already troubled times. The outside world is already in chaos, and now something like this has happened internally. It's really troublesome. Everyone spoke one after another. After the middle-aged man had shaken off Song Xing and Nan Gongguan's pursuit, he had immediately reported the situation to the Great Rock Palace. Moreover, he had said that it was suspected that there was more than one foreign ancestor realm expert. As such, the Great Rock Palace naturally could not let down their guard. After all, there was more than one ancestor realm expert, and the threat to the Great Rock Palace had been infinitely increased. The people spoke one after another, and in the end, it was the old man in the lead who spoke. All right, we don't know the identities or goals of these foreigners, but we can't let down our guard. I feel that it's best to personally go and take a look. The outside world is already difficult to deal with, and we can't allow any more chaos to occur internally. The old man immediately decided to go and take a look. They cannot be careless at all. In response, someone asked, "What if these people really are foreigners? If we can kill them, then kill them. Killing them is the easiest way to deal with them," the old man replied. Regardless of why these foreigners had entered the nightmare world, their existence was a threat to the Great Rock Palace. How could they allow outsiders to sleep beside them? If they had the ability, they would directly kill them. As for negotiations, that would only happen when both sides were equal in strength. If the Great Rock Palace had the ability to kill these outsiders, why would they need to negotiate with them? Killing them would save them a lot of trouble. Moreover, according to the information that the middle-aged man had sent back, they could only confirm that there were two Ancestor Realm experts. Even though these two Ancestor Realm experts were not weak, it was not a problem that the Great Rock Palace could deal with. The old man was more inclined to directly kill them. In response, the others fell silent for a moment, but no one objected. After all, these foreigners were not from the nightmare world, and leaving them alive would be a hidden danger. Moreover, it was at such a critical juncture. Most importantly, the World Master was not in the Dark Awakened world. In order to deal with the threat of the Origin world, the World Master of the Dark Awakened world had left the Dark Awakened world a long time ago. His goal was to discuss with the World Masters of other universes about how to deal with the Origin world. Of course, what the World Master wanted the most was to find Shao Chun and the others to form an alliance. After all, it was not a secret that Shao Chun and the others were forming an alliance, and they had even announced it in order to rope in more universes. The Nightmare World's World Master had naturally heard about this, so his goal was to find Shao Chun and the others and join the alliance. Everyone present knew about this, but there had been no news from the World Master, so no one knew how the World Master was doing. It was because of this that the old man suggested ending everything. They could not allow the nightmare world to fall into chaos, or else the situation would become even more uncontrollable. They would first see the other side's strength. If there were only two Ancestor Realm experts, they would directly kill them. Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me. Chapter 2858. A decision was quickly made. When no one objected, the old man leading the group said, "Since that's the case, let's set off immediately. Tell Qi Kun to wait for us here." A decision was quickly made. When no one objected, the old man leading the group said, "Since that's the case, let's set off immediately. Tell Qi Kun to wait for us here." The group rushed to the small city where the Sacred Palace group was located. At the same time, the Sacred Palace group was arguing endlessly. Some felt that they should retreat for the time being. After all, now wasn't the time to start a conflict with Great Peng Palace. Once a conflict broke out, everyone's identities would be exposed. However, there were also some who felt that even if they retreated, where could they go? Was the outside world safer than here? Perhaps not. Moreover, Great Peng Palace was clearly easier to deal with compared to the Origin world. If they had to choose, they would rather face Great Peng Palace than the Origin world. Since that was the case, why should they retreat? They wanted to see how Great Peng Palace would react. At the very least, with everyone's strength, they could at least negotiate with Great Peng Palace. There were two different opinions, and the differences between them were huge. Moreover, both had their own reasons. After listening to everyone's argument, Song Xing was the first to speak. All right, when will there be a result if we continue arguing like this? There was no need to mention Song Xing's prestige in the sacred palace. Apart from Xiao Chun, Long Qing, and Xinyuan Ling, Song Xing's prestige was unparalleled. Therefore, as soon as he spoke, everyone quickly stopped arguing. The scene instantly quieted down. Song Xing looked at Nangong Wan, Zhou Song, and the others and asked, "What about you guys? What do you think?" Song Xing was asking Ancestor Realm experts. They were also the cornerstones of the sacred palace, so their opinions were obviously very important. Under Song Xing's questioning, Nangong Wan, Zhou Song, and the others also expressed their opinions. However, their attitudes were somewhat unexpected. Nangong Wan and the others actually felt that there was no need to leave for the time being. Or rather, it was better to wait here for the people from the Great Rock Palace to arrive. After hearing Nangong Wan and the others' answers, Song Xing asked Xiao Qing, who was sitting at the head of the table. Xiao Chen wasn't present, and Xiao Qing was Xiao Chen's father, so his opinion was naturally very important. I agree with Nangong Guan's decision. This was Xiao Qing's answer. At this point, everyone already knew the final outcome. There was no need to take any action for the time being. Even if they knew that the experts from Daping Palace would appear, there was no need for them to leave. There was no better way to deal with this, and the situation in the outside world was much more dangerous than in the Dark Awakened world. As such, it was better to remain in the Dark Awakened world. Compared to the Origin world, the Great Rock Palace was much easier to deal with. Since even Xiao Qing had spoken, and his thoughts were the same as Song Xing's, Song Xing immediately agreed. All right, since that's the case, we'll stay. However, we can't let our guard down. Pay attention to the Great Rock Palace's movements at all times. Once the experts from Daping Palace appear, report to me immediately. In the end, the people from the Saint Palace chose to stay and wait for the experts from Daping Palace to arrive. Although this decision was somewhat unexpected, no one objected. After all, this was the decision of the vice sect leaders and Xiao Qing, so no one had the right to object. They continued to stay in the Xiao family mansion, quietly waiting for the elite practitioners from the Great Rock Palace to arrive. In the next few days, Xiao Yao and the other two were prohibited from leaving the house. With regards to this, the three of them were aware of the current situation and were extremely obedient. Big brother, what do you think will happen when the people from Daping Palace arrive? Since they had nothing to do, the three siblings gathered together and chatted while drinking. In response to Xiao Lao's question, Xiao Yao took a sip of wine and said, "They'll probably fight first before sitting down to negotiate." Why do they have to fight first? Of course they want to see our strength. If we're too strong, Daping Palace will negotiate with us to confirm our intentions and purpose. However, if we don't have such strength, Daping Palace will not hesitate to destroy us. Xiao Yao's guess was very accurate. She had already guessed Daping Palace's decision. However, Xiao Lao did not quite understand. Since they were going to negotiate, why did they have to fight? Xiao Lao clearly did not realize that the basis of negotiation was built on the basis that both parties were equal. In other words, if the difference in strength was too great, then you wouldn't even have the right to negotiate. After all, if you were no longer a threat, why didn't they just destroy you? Why did they have to negotiate with you? One had to know that negotiation meant compromise, and this compromise was a compromise between both parties. No one would be able to gain an advantage. Since I have the strength to destroy you, why should I choose to compromise? Wouldn't it be easier to just destroy you? Xiao Yao understood the crux of the matter very well. Hence, she was certain that Daping Palace's arrival would definitely trigger a great battle. In this battle, the Sacred Palace group would have to bring out enough strength to make Daping Palace wary in exchange for a chance to negotiate. Seeing that Xiao Lao was still puzzled, Xiao Yao shook her head and said with a smile, "All right, this matter has nothing to do with us. It's a matter for Grandpa and the other progenitor experts. It's useless for us to worry about it." Xiao Qing was also at the progenitor stage, and the most crucial part of this battle was the battle between progenitor stage experts. As for the others, they were not that important. Moreover, Xiaoqing and the others would never allow the three siblings to participate in the battle. This was something that Xiao Yao had already expected. Xiao Yao had already guessed what might happen next. On the other side, in Xiaoqing's residence, Xiaoqing and Jun Wuya were sitting opposite each other. Jun Wuya had been with Xiaoqing and the others all this time. Xiaoqing said helplessly as he looked at Jun Wuya. It seems that this battle is unavoidable. This is inevitable. Without sufficient strength, there is no possibility of a fair discussion. Jun Wuya said faintly. How could Xiaoqing and Jun Wuya not have thought of something that even Xiao Yao had thought of? Therefore, everyone was already prepared for battle. However, such a battle was indeed unpleasant. After all, it was completely meaningless. Moreover, no one wanted to provoke the Great Rock Palace. If possible, Xiaoqing would definitely want to wait calmly for Xiao Chun to come out of seclusion before making a fuss. However, now that they had been discovered by the people of the Great Rock Palace by a freak combination of factors, they could only fight. It could be said that they were forced into a corner, but they had no choice. Looking at Xiaoqing's helpless expression, Jun Wuya chuckled and said, "All right, we don't have to decide the outcome of this battle. We just need to show the strength that the Great Rock Palace is wary of. Moreover, the Great Rock Palace probably underestimated our numbers. Perhaps we can win without a fight." Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 28:59. The goal of this battle was not to defeat the Great Rock Palace, but to make the Great Rock Palace wary of them. In any case, the Sacred Palace's goal was not to occupy the awakened netherworld. They only needed a temporary place to stay. Of course, no one could say for sure what would happen in the end. Moreover, it was uncertain whether the Great Rock Palace's World Master would be willing to negotiate with the Sacred Palace. What if the Great Rock Palace insisted on destroying the Sacred Palace's people? It would be very troublesome then. After all, the Sacred Palace's World Master, Xiao Chun, was not here. Therefore, if they fought to the death, the Sacred Palace actually had no chance of winning. Just the World Master alone was unstoppable. Therefore, Xiaoqing and the others still made preparations. If the Great Rock Palace insisted on fighting to the death, the Sacred Palace's people would immediately leave the awakened netherworld. For this reason, Songxing had arranged for people to draw a temporary teleportation array. If something went wrong, they would immediately be teleported away. It could be said that they were fully prepared. However, who knew what the final outcome would be? Just like that, 3 days passed. During these 3 days, the Sacred Palace's people were still very low-key. Perhaps the other large families in the city were already used to the Sacred Palace's character, so they did not pay much attention. It was rare for the city to be quiet for 3 days. However, on the morning of the 4th day, a terrifying pressure suddenly descended on the small city. There were a total of 9 pressures, each representing an ancestor realm expert of the Great Rock Palace. They did not have the slightest intention of underestimating the Sacred Palace's people. This time, except for the Great Rock Palace's World Master, all the ancestor realm experts were present to deal with the Sacred Palace's people. The Sacred Palace's people naturally sensed the terrifying pressure descending. In fact, the Sacred Palace's people had already received the news. At this moment, in the main hall, Xiaoqing, Jun Wuya, Songxing, Nan Gongguan, and the other Sacred Palace Ancestor Realm experts were also gathered. There were as many as 8 of them. Of course, this was not all the Ancestor Realm experts of the Sacred Palace. After all, after so many years of development, the Sacred Palace's strength was actually far greater than the Great Rock Palace's. However, they were scattered this time, so only Xiaoqing, Jun Wuya, and the others were present. Jun Wuya, who was sitting on the main seat, chuckled softly as he sensed the 9 waves of pressure coming from the sky. They're here. At the same time, following the arrival of the 9 ancestor stage experts from the Great Rock Hall, the small city, which was originally located in a remote area, instantly turned into an uproar. The experts from the various large clans rose into the sky one after another. Their faces were filled with horror as they looked at the 9 figures in the sky. Given their strength, it was naturally impossible for them to come into contact with an ancestor stage expert, much less know how frightening an ancestor stage expert was. However, it was not difficult to determine from the pressure emitted by them that any one of the 9 people who had suddenly appeared could easily destroy them. That was why everyone was so terrified. What was the purpose of such a powerful cultivator coming here? After all, there shouldn't be anything in this small city that could pique the interest of these experts. Seniors, may I know, despite the fear in his heart, someone mustered the courage to step forward and ask. However, before this person could finish his words, one of the ancestor stage experts from the Great Rock Hall interrupted him. Scram, this has nothing to do with you. As he spoke, he casually threw out a token. Upon seeing this token, the person was stunned because this token belonged to an elder of the Great Rock Hall. There were only 9 elders of the Great Rock Hall, and all of them were at the ancestor stage. They were famous figures in the entire nightmare world, and there were exactly 9 of them here. For a moment, everyone present was stunned on the spot, as if they had been struck by lightning. The 9 elders of the Great Rock Hall had arrived at the same time? What was going on? They, who had always lived in this remote area, had never seen such a scene before. Not to mention elders, even ordinary disciples of the Great Rock Hall would find it difficult to come into contact with them. But now, the 9 elders of the Great Rock Hall were standing right in front of them. For a moment, everyone felt as if they were in a dream. However, at this moment, from the Shao family's mansion, auras that were not weaker than the 9 elders soared into the sky one after another. In the end, there were 8 of them. At this moment, everyone was even more shocked. The Shao family that had suddenly appeared had so many experts. Moreover, judging from their auras, they could actually stand up to the 9 elders. They were shocked by the Shao family's strength, but the 9 elders' expressions were grave because they sensed the auras of 8 ancestor stage experts. At the beginning, the information that Qi Kun had sent back said that there were only 2 ancestor stage experts, but now it seemed that this was completely wrong. There were not only 2, but 8. 8 ancestor stage experts. This was already enough to topple the entire nightmare world. Even the Great Rock Hall did not dare to say that they could win, not to mention that the World Lord was not in the nightmare world. The situation was completely different from what the Great Rock Hall had expected. It could even be said that the difference was like heaven and earth. While the 9 elders were shocked, Shao Qing and the others appeared in the sky one after another, looking at the 9 elders of the Great Rock Hall. Seeing Shao Qing's appearance, the patriarchs of the other large families in the city were stunned. The Shao family's patriarch was actually so strong? Then, before, they had always thought that the Shao family's strength was only on par with theirs. If it wasn't for the fact that the Shao family had never fought or robbed and did not harm their interests, the other large families might have joined forces to chase the Shao family out. But who would have thought that the mysterious Shao family that suddenly appeared would actually be so powerful? One must know that they were facing the 9 elders of the Great Rock Hall. In an instant, fear and relief flashed through their hearts. Fortunately, they did not make things difficult for the Shao family, where the consequences would be severe. Shao Qing did not care about the feelings of the large families in the city. From the very beginning, he had not placed them in his eyes. To put it bluntly, these people were not on the same level as Shao Qing. At this moment, Shao Qing's group of 8 indifferently looked at Qi Kun's group. In the end, Jun Wuya's gaze met with the old man's, and a trace of surprise flashed through their eyes. In the end, it was Jun Wuya who spoke. We have no intention of becoming enemies with the Great Rock Hall. If we can sit down and talk, I feel that we can resolve many misunderstandings. Misunderstandings? Your Excellency and the others have secretly snuck into the nightmare world with unclear intentions. Could it be that you can just say that it's a misunderstanding? Hearing this, the old man said, although the appearance of Jun Wuya and the others had completely disrupted the Great Rock Hall's plan, it was not to the point where they would panic. Therefore, the old man's attitude was still very unyielding, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2860. The Great Rock Palace had indeed not expected 8 ancestor experts. They had originally thought that there would only be 2 ancestor experts. Given the Great Rock Palace's strength, the 9 Great Elders would definitely be able to kill or even capture the 2 ancestor experts alive. The Great Rock Palace had indeed not expected 8 ancestor experts. They had originally thought that there would only be 2 ancestor experts. Given the Great Rock Palace's strength, the 9 Great Elders would definitely be able to kill or even capture the 2 ancestor experts alive. However, there were 8 ancestor realm experts on Shaoqing's side. In this case, the Great Rock Palace did not have absolute confidence in fighting them head-on. Of course, the most important thing was that the World Master of the Nightmare World was not present. If the World Master was present, the situation would be different. Now, they needed to make a choice. Should they insist on fighting or sit down and negotiate? As the old man spoke, Junwei saw his hesitation and spoke at the appropriate time. There's no harm in sitting down and talking. If you can't come to an agreement, you can just attack. Junwei's words had obviously moved the elder from the Great Rock Palace. Given the current situation, starting a battle was indeed not a wise move. After all, it was 8 against 9. Although the Great Rock Palace had the advantage in numbers, the advantage of one person was actually not that great. After thinking for a moment, the old man finally nodded in agreement. All right, but if you don't have a reasonable explanation, this old man guarantees that none of you will be able to leave the nightmare world. Faced with the old man's threat, Junwei chose to ignore it. This was the Great Rock Palace's territory, and the Sacred Palace did not want to become enemies with the Great Rock Palace. He smiled and gestured for them to enter, following which the group slowly landed in the Shao family's mansion. At the same time, Songxing personally sealed the space around the Shao family's mansion. With an Ancestor Realm expert personally taking action, unless one was also an Ancestor Realm expert, no one else would be able to approach the Shao family's mansion, let alone eavesdrop on their conversation. Some people still tried to approach the Shao family's mansion, but when they were 10 meters away from it, they found that they could not take another step forward. It was as if something was blocking their path, making it impossible to pass through. Unwilling to give up, he tried several times, but in the end, he was unable to move it at all. He could only helplessly choose to give up. At the same time, after arriving at the main hall, everyone took their seats one after another. Junwei and the old man sat together at the head of the table. It was obvious that the two of them were in charge of this conversation. After ordering the tea to be brewed, Junwei took the initiative to say, "We are from the vast 1,000 domains." Since they wanted to talk, they had to show their sincerity. Therefore, Junwei did not hide anything and directly revealed their identities. After all, if they did not even reveal their identities to the other party, it was obvious that there would be no progress in this kind of talk. They would only part on bad terms. Junwei's words stunned the old man at first. Then he asked curiously, "Are you from the Sacred Palace?" He did not expect the old man to know about the Sacred Palace. Hearing this, Junwei nodded slightly. Seeing this, the old man's expression became complicated. During this period of time, the World Master of the Nightmare World had gone out to find the Sacred Palace's Palace Master, who was also the World Master of the vast 1,000 domains, Shaoqing. However, he did not expect to meet people from the Sacred Palace in the Nightmare World without any news from the Palace Master. "Are you really from the Sacred Palace?" he asked again in disbelief. Junwei naturally sensed the old man's abnormal behavior, but he still nodded and said, "I have no reason to lie to you about this." In terms of identity, Junwei indeed had no reason to lie to the Great Rock Palace. After confirming that Junwei and the others were indeed from the Sacred Palace, the old man asked again, "What about your Palace Master? What do you mean by that?" The sudden mention of Shao Chun undoubtedly attracted the attention of Junwei and the others. Could it be that the Great Rock Palace was on the Origin World side? For a moment, Junwei's gaze became vigilant. If the Great Rock Palace was really on the Origin World side, then this battle was really unavoidable, and there was no need to continue talking. The atmosphere instantly became heavy, and the old man quickly reacted. He knew that Jun Wuya and the others had misunderstood him, so he hurriedly added, "I didn't mean that. My Great Rock Palace is not from the origin world. On the contrary, our Great Rock Palace's view of the new world is the same as the Sacred Palace's. The reason why we asked about the Sacred Palace's Palace Master is because our Palace Master intends to join the Alliance. That's why we asked." After the old man's explanation, the atmosphere eased a little. However, Jun Wuya and the others did not dare to completely wake up. Afterward, both sides began to probe each other, and in the process, many things were resolved. First, the Great Rock Palace's Palace Master was currently searching for Xiao Chen's whereabouts, hoping to join the Alliance. However, the old man did not tell Jun Wuya and the others that the Palace Master was not in the Nightmare World. After all, this was a matter of great importance, and he could not casually reveal it. On the other side, Jun Wuya and the others only said that Xiao Chan was currently in closed-door cultivation, and the reason they had come to the Nightmare World was to wait for Xiao Chan to enter closed-door cultivation. After Xiao Chan came out of closed-door cultivation, everyone would gather again, and at that time, the Great Rock Palace would be able to join the Alliance. However, because Xiao Chan was currently in closed-door cultivation, the Alliance had temporarily split up. During this period of time, they would need to hide in the Nightmare World to avoid being discovered by the Origin World. They also did not reveal that Xiao Chun and the others had gone to the Creation Grounds, but they did reveal their purpose for coming. Some were true, some were false, and the Great Rock Palace did not know what was going on. Both sides continued to probe each other like this, but after a while, the old man's attitude had indeed changed. This was because Jun Wuya had said that they would only hide for a while and would not interfere with the matters of the Nightmare World or the Great Rock Palace. Before, they had been forced into the Feng Lin's sex matter. They told the old man about the Feng Lin's sex matter. There was no need to hide anything, as they had no other choice. Hearing Jun Wuya's words, the old man fell silent for a moment before saying, "So, it's like that. That's how it is. If the Feng Lin sect hadn't pressured us step by step, we wouldn't have done this. In the coming period of time, we might need to hide here, so I hope you can help us. It would be best if they could come to an agreement." Moreover, after knowing that they were from the Holy Palace, the old man was not as hostile as before, and this was the same for the other ancestor realm experts of the Great Rock Palace. From the 9 people's reactions, the old man's words were most likely true. They indeed wanted to join the Alliance, so they naturally had a good impression of the Holy Palace. Please add, vote, recommend. Chapter 2861. They originally wanted to join the alliance created by Xiao Chun and fight against the Origin World together. However, after learning that Jun Wuya and the others were from the Sacred Palace, the 9 elders of the Great Rock Palace changed their attitudes to varying degrees. In the end, after Jun Wuya's explanation and request, the elder did not make things difficult for them and agreed to let them continue to hide here. Of course, the prerequisite was that Jun Wuya promised not to interfere with the matters of the Great Rock Palace and the Great Rock World. Moreover, if they encountered matters similar to the Feng Lin sect in the future, they had to inform the Great Rock Palace in advance. They could not directly destroy the Feng Lin sect like they did this time. Jun Wuya naturally agreed without hesitation. After all, this was not a difficult matter. It could even be said that if they had contacted the people of the Great Rock Palace last time, they would not have had to do it themselves. They had reached an agreement, and this was all thanks to Xiao Chen's reputation. After all, Xiao Chun, Lin Yun, and the others were the first to stand up against the Origin World. This greatly increased their reputation, especially Xiao Chun. He was recognized by many world lords, and even the Great Thousand World and the Sacred Palace became famous. If it were not for this, the Great Rock Palace Master would not have known about Xiao Chun and even had thoughts of joining the alliance. This was the benefit of reputation. If it were not for Xiao Chen's reputation, this negotiation would not have ended so smoothly. After everything was settled, everyone was in a good mood. Jun Wuya was even prepared to take out a long time to entertain them. Suddenly, the old man received a letter. After reading the contents of the letter, his face instantly became serious. "What's wrong?" Junwia asked when he noticed the change in the elder's expression. "The people of the origin world are here and are not far from the Dark Awakened world. They probably want to attack the Dark Awakened world. The people of the origin world just had to come at this critical moment." Hearing this, Junwia was stunned. The origin world's speed was faster than he had imagined. This was not strange. Recently, his masters had sped up their progress in the new world. Now that they had arrived in the Dark Awakened world, it was not too difficult. For a moment, everyone's mood became heavy. Now that the people of the origin world had arrived in the Dark Awakened world, there was no point in their previous conversation. After all, once the Dark Awakened world was destroyed, Junwuya and the others could no longer continue to hide. This accident ruined everyone's good mood. However, after a moment of silence, Junwuya said, "We're willing to lend Great Rock Palace a hand." Even if they continued Rock Palace, where could they run to? He might as well give it his all. After all, no egg would remain unbroken when the nest was overturned. Moreover, if he could join forces with the Great Rock Palace, they might be able to resist for a longer period of time. That way, they would have more hope of holding out until Xiao Chun came out of his closed-door training. Jun Wuya's words stunned the elder. He did not expect Jun Wuya to say such a thing. In response, Jun Wuya simply said, "We all have a common enemy. Working together is undoubtedly the best choice. Moreover, in this situation, even if we leave the Dark Awakened world, where can we go? It's better to work together. Perhaps we'll have a chance to survive. As long as we can hold on until our palace master comes out, we'll have a chance to fight." Holding out until Xiao Chun came out of isolation was their only hope of the moment, and working together was the best option. Hearing Jun Wuya's words, the elder was slightly surprised. He then stood up and bowed. "Thank you. If Jun Wuya and the others could help, they would naturally be more than happy to do so." The elder had no reason to refuse. After all, the Dark Awakened world was their territory. Once it was destroyed, their fate would be unimaginable. As such, Jun Wuya's help was only beneficial to the Great Rock Palace. "I'll go and contact the palace master," another elder said. Everyone quickly decided to work together. Moreover, because of the sudden change in the situation, there was no need to continue hiding. Thus, after some discussion, Jun Wuya and Xiao Qing decided that everyone would head to the Great Rock Palace. Just as they were about to leave, Xiao Yao and the others heard the news. Xiao Yao sighed helplessly and said, "What troubled times. I wonder how father is doing." Xiao Chun was everyone's hope. If Xiao Chun could not succeed, then there would be no hope at all. Hearing Xiao Yao's words, Xiao Lao said in a low voice, "Father can definitely do it." They did not need to hide anymore. They headed directly to the Great Rock Palace to fight against the invading origin world together. The only fortunate thing was that the primogenitors would not personally come this time. After all, there was no need for the primogenitors to personally deal with the various universes. Instead, they would send cultivators who had their emotions and desires forcibly removed. Because they were attacking multiple universes at the same time, the origin world could not gather all of its forces to deal with the Nightmare Awakened world. This gave everyone a chance to stall for time. Of course, this was only stalling for time. It was almost impossible for them to achieve victory. The Nightmare Awakened world was now in danger. At the same time, Xiao Chun and the others were still in closed-door cultivation in the creation ground. Within the boundless sea of blood, Xiao Chun's consciousness was already very hazy. He could not feel the passage of time at all. Only the last trace of clarity that he held on to prevented Xiao Chun from completely losing consciousness. However, the intense pain in his body did not disappear. It was as if thousands of years had passed. Amidst the intense pain, he was repeatedly tortured, and he did not know when it would end. It could not be said that he was numb. After all, the pain was still difficult for Xiao Chun to accept. However, Xiao Chun still gritted his teeth and persevered. Little Qing was also paying close attention to Xiao Chun and the others. However, it was a pity that so far, 3 of them had already fallen. The 3 world lords were unable to endure the pain, and had fainted. Once they lost consciousness, they would never be able to wake up again. When the time came, they would be crushed by that berserk power. There were 3 people, which was one more than the first stage of soul rebirth. This showed how difficult it was to reforge a physical body. Of course, this was because the physical body that Xiao Chun and the others needed was not an ordinary physical body. If it were an ordinary physical body, there would be no need to go through so much trouble. Xiaoqing could easily help everyone restore their original physical bodies, and they would not be weak at all. However, if that happened, it would be impossible for Xiao Chun and the others to reach the level of the ancient era's living beings. Both the soul and the body were indispensable, and without either, Xiao Chun and the others would not be able to succeed in their closed-door cultivation. Please add, vote, recommend. Chapter 2862. Xiao Chun and the rest had reached the final step of their seclusion. This step was crucial to their success. Although little Qing had been paying attention to Xiao Chun and the rest's situation, she had no intention of lending a helping hand. If they could persevere, they would be able to obtain the same strength as the ancient spirits. As for whether they succeeded or not, it would depend on Xiao Chun and the rest's abilities. On the other hand, Qin Shu, Lu Bingning, and the rest's cultivation was going very smoothly. It seemed that they would come out of seclusion earlier than Xiao Chun and the rest. However, this was normal. After all, compared to Xiao Chun and the rest, it was obviously much easier for Lu Bingning and the rest to break through to the World Lord level. Time passed by slowly. After a few days, Lu Bingning, Qin Shu, and the rest of the girls came out of seclusion successfully. Everyone's cultivation had also reached the World Lord level. With little Qing's help, Lu Bingning and the rest's seclusion this time could be said to be very smooth. Basically, they did not encounter any difficulties and only needed to follow the prescribed order to succeed. The first to come out of seclusion was Gong Nantian, Xin Yuanling, Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the rest. However, only one day later, Lu Bingning, Qin Shu, and the rest of the girls also came out of seclusion successfully. After returning to little Qing's residence from the seclusion place, she learned that Xiao Chun and the rest were still in seclusion. Qin Shu and the rest of the girls could not see them for the time being. However, compared to Qin Shu and the rest of the girls, the subordinates of the 5 world lords who had fallen were all in a heavy mood after hearing the news of the fall of their world lords. After all, the fall of their world lords was indeed a huge blow to them. However, this was something that could not be helped. Now, they could only wait quietly for Xiao Chun and the rest to come out of seclusion. However, little Qing did not know when Xiao Chun and the rest would come out of seclusion. At night, Qin Shu, Flower Fairy, and the rest of the girls gathered together to chat. Suddenly, they talked about Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and Xiao Wan. It had been a long time since they entered the land of creation. They did not know how the 3 little guys were doing now. As a mother, who wouldn't miss their children? Moreover, the situation in the outside world was so chaotic right now. Would they encounter any danger? Speaking of this, Qin Shu and the other girls couldn't calm down. Early the next morning, they took the initiative to look for little Qing and asked if he had any way to find Xiao Yao and the others. Of course I can. You are blood relatives. I can use a secret technique to find their whereabouts. Little Qing agreed without hesitation. After all, this was not a difficult task for him. With Qin Shu and Fairy of 100 Flowers, he could find out the whereabouts of Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao through some means. Hearing this, Qin Shu and the other women were very happy and immediately offered a drop of their blood essence. Through the blood essence, little Qing was able to locate Xiao Yao and the others. Apocalypse World. Soon, little Qing found Xiao Yao and Xiao Luo's whereabouts. They were in the Nightmare Awakened world. Hearing this, Qin Shu and 100 Flower Fairy let out a sigh of relief. They knew that Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao had gone to the Apocalypse World, and since they were still in the Apocalypse World, they should be fine. However, at that moment, little Qing slightly frowned. The situation in the Apocalypse World doesn't seem too good. What is it? The people from the Origin World have already started to attack the Apocalypse World. After finding Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao, Little Qing found out about the situation in the Apocalypse world. Facing the Origin world's attack, the Apocalypse world was indeed in a bad situation. Even though it had not been broken through, it was in great danger. After hearing Little Qing's words, Zhao Fu's relaxed mood became tense again. The Origin world was already attacking the Nightmare Awakened world. If that was the case, then Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and the others, it's definitely dangerous. For a time, all of them were slightly worried. After all, once they were captured by the Origin world, then the consequences were obvious. At the very least, their emotions and desires would be extracted, and they would become emotionless walking corpses. Their hearts clenched, and the women looked at each other. Following this, Qinshu said, "No, I have to go to the Apocalypse world." The situation in the Apocalypse world was critical, so Qinshu immediately prepared to go there. Hearing this, Fairy of 100 Flowers, Gu Lingyao, Tianyu, and Beautiful Red did not refuse. Seeing this, Little Qing asked, "Are you sure?" The situation in the Apocalypse world was indeed not good. Hearing Little Qing's question, the women nodded, "I'm sure." Seeing this, Little Qing nodded, "I can send you there, but be careful and don't attract the attention of the primogenitors. Xiao Chun and the others should be coming out of closed-door cultivation soon, so we just need to stall for time." A mere Apocalypse world naturally did not know that the primogenitors had taken action. Now that Qinshu and the others had World Lord cultivation, they would not be too much of a threat. Of course, that was on the premise that they did not attract the attention of the primogenitors. Hearing Little Qing's words, Qinshu and the others nodded. They knew the severity of the situation and understood what they had to do, so they did not try to be brave. There were many experts from the Divine Palace in the Apocalypse world, and they could not afford to lose them. It was understandable for them to go and provide reinforcements. Little Qing told the women to go and make preparations, and Little Qing could construct a spatial passageway to the Apocalypse world, but it would take some time. While Little Qing was busy constructing the spatial passageway, Xin Yuanling and Long Qing heard that Qin Shu and the others were going to the Apocalypse world, so they immediately asked the women to go with them. "Let's go together. I wonder how strong the primordial world is." Facing Xin Yuanling and Long Qing's request, Qin Shu and the others naturally had no reason to refuse. Moreover, even though they had both broken through to the World Lord realm, Xin Yuanling and Long Qing were evidently stronger than Qin Shu and the others. Apart from Xin Yuanling and Long Qing, Lu Bingning, Lin Yuan, Gong Nantian, and the others all expressed their willingness to go as well. However, there was no point in having so many people go to the Apocalypse world. With Qin Shu and the others, as well as Xin Yuanling and Long Qing, 7 World Lord were enough to deal with matters in the Apocalypse world. Right now, the most important thing was to wait for Xiao Chun and the others to come out of closed-door cultivation. Only then would the battle in the primordial world truly begin, so there was no need for them to reveal themselves so early. It was enough for Qin Shu and 100 Flower Fairy to go to the Apocalypse world first, and there was no point for anyone else to go. In response, no one insisted. After all, the bigger picture was more important. The matter was quickly decided, and Little Qing did not spend too much time constructing the spatial passageway that led directly to the Apocalypse world, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2863. After the spatial channel was constructed, Qin Shu and the others planned to leave. There was nothing to say, as the Dark Awakened world was not the main battlefield. Currently, the Origin world was attacking more than just the Dark Awakened world. After the spatial channel was constructed, Qin Shu and the others planned to leave. There was nothing to say, as the Dark Awakened world was not the main battlefield. Currently, the Origin world was attacking more than just the Dark Awakened world. "Be careful." Lu Bingning and the others came to send them off. In response, Qin Shu and 100 Flower Fairy nodded and said, "Don't worry, we know what's important." After a simple farewell, Qin Shu and the others stepped into the spatial channel. This spatial channel could directly send Qin Shiru and the others to the dark awakened world. Only little Qing had such an ability. As a spirit of heaven and earth, it wasn't difficult for her to construct a spatial passage that crossed the universe. However, such a spatial passage wasn't stable. Of course, it wasn't a problem for the current Qin Shiru and the others. With the cultivation of a world lord, Qin Shiru and the others were much stronger than before. They would definitely be able to resist the space storms in the spatial channel, so they did not need to worry too much. Qin Shiru and the others left. Within the dark awakened world, the battle was incredibly intense. Even with the help of Junwei, Shao Qing, and the others, the Great Rock Palace still found it difficult to hold on against the Origin World's experts. Fortunately, the Origin World had only sent one World Lord to the Dark Awakened World. Otherwise, the Great Rock Palace might not have been able to hold on. At that moment, within the Great Rock Palace's main palace, Junwei, Shao Qing, the 9 elders, and the palace master were all present. The battle had been intense for a while. Even though the Great Rock Palace had bitterly held on and did not allow the Origin World's people to enter the Dark Awakened World, as time passed, the battle became more and more difficult. The Great Rock Palace's palace master was called Yin Peng, and after receiving the message, he immediately rushed back to the Nightmare Awakened World. It was because of him that the Nightmare Awakened World was able to resist the Origin World's attack. The only good news was that there was only one World Master in the Origin World. However, no one knew how long the situation would last. After all, everyone knew that there was more than one World Master in the Origin World. Once the Origin World sent another World Lord, it would be incredibly difficult for Yin Peng to fight 2 World Lords by himself. Once a World Lord was defeated, it would be a disaster for the Nightmare Awakened World. After all, apart from Yin Peng, no one else could stop a World Lord. The casualties are getting heavier and heavier. On the main seat, Yin Peng sighed softly. Yin Peng had the appearance of a young man and could not be considered handsome. However, as a World Master, he naturally had an extraordinary bearing. Yin Peng was naturally extremely grateful to Shao Qing and the others for their help. During this period of intense battle, Shao Qing and the others had indeed helped a lot. Otherwise, with the Great Rock Palace's strength alone, they would have been defeated long ago and would not have been able to hold on until now. However, Yin Peng was not happy about the current situation at all. This was especially so because the Great Rock Palace had suffered heavy losses during this period of time. On the Origin World side, those who had their emotions and desires extracted were like mad demons and did not fear death at all. Shao Qing, Junwei, when will Brother Shao Chun come out of seclusion? Yin Peng sighed and turned to look at Junwei and the others as he asked. Right now, Yin Peng's only hope was Shao Chun. However, Shao Chun had been in seclusion this entire time, and no one knew when he would come out. This made them feel quite uncomfortable. If they could not hold on until Shao Chun came out of seclusion, it was easy to imagine what would happen to the Nightmare Awakened World. In response, Junwei said somewhat helplessly, "We don't know the exact time either." Junwei and the others indeed did not know when Shao Chun would come out of seclusion. In fact, Junwei and the others did not know what Shao Chun's situation was. Hearing this, even though Yin Peng felt a bit disappointed, there was nothing he could do. However, he did not think that Shao Chun would just sit by and do nothing. Once Shao Chun came out of seclusion and learned about the Nightmare Awakened World, Yin Peng was certain that Shao Chun would come. After all, Shao Chun's children, father, and mother were all in the Nightmare Awakened World. Even if Shao Chun did not want to help the Great Rock Palace, he would not disregard his family. Yin Peng was quite confident about this. The only thing he had to consider was when Shao Chun would come out of seclusion and whether the Great Rock Palace would be able to hold on until Shao Chun arrived. Yin Peng thought to himself, but he could not come up with any good ideas. After thinking about it, there was only one path, which was to fight to the death and do their best to hold on until the last moment. As for whether or not they would be able to make it in time, that was not something Yin Peng could decide. All right, everyone go and rest. Keep a close eye on the origin world and report to me immediately if anything happens. Peng waved his hand and gestured for everyone to go and rest. Everyone was very tired after the continuous battles, and it was rare for them to rest. It was best to use this time to adjust their condition. Who knew when the origin world would attack again? The night passed peacefully, but the origin world launched another attack early in the morning of the next day. Peng and the others were already used to this because they had experienced such an attack countless times recently. Therefore, they quickly reacted. At the entrance of the Nightmare Awakened world, Peng, Xiaoqing, Jun Wuya, Song Xing, and the many experts from the Great Rock Palace reacted immediately. They soared into the sky and immediately engaged in a fierce battle with the people from the origin world. There was no nonsense. The cultivators from the origin world were emotionless walking corpses. They only knew how to carry out the orders of their primogenitors. The fierce battle between the two sides was still extremely tragic. At this moment, 3 middle-aged men appeared in front of Peng. Facing these 3 middle-aged men, Peng's expression was extremely grave. Yesterday, there was only one world lord guarding the origin world, but early this morning, there were 2 more world lords. Needless to say, these 2 people must have come from other places as reinforcements. All this time, although Peng could not win against a world lord, he would not lose either. However, with the arrival of the origin world's reinforcements, the situation instantly took a turn for the worse. Fighting 1 against 3, Peng's chances of winning were almost 0. On the other side, one of the 3 world lords from the origin world said indifferently, "I underestimated your great rock palace before, but now Peng, you have no chance. Please collect, vote, recommend." Chapter 2864. The person who spoke was the first world lord who had led the attack on the Nightmare Awakened world. However, he had not expected the Great Rock Palace to be so powerful and to have nearly 20 Ancestor Realm experts. Of course, this person did not know that the Great Rock Palace was not that powerful. If it was not for Xiaoqing, Jun Wuya, and the others' help, perhaps he would have already taken down the Nightmare Awakened world. Even with Peng there, it would not have been of any help. Things had exceeded his expectations, so he had quickly asked for help from the origin world. These 2 world lords had also rushed over to help him. In order to quickly complete the establishment of the new world, the primogenitors had stretched out the battlefront. As such, even though there were many world lords in the origin world, only 2 of them were able to come to the Nightmare Awakened world's aid. Even so, this was already a force that had been squeezed out through gritted teeth. There was nothing they could do about it. After all, the primogenitors had stretched out the battlefront in pursuit of speed. Even so, with 3 world lords, it was enough to take down the Nightmare Awakened world. Only Peng alone could not stop the 3 of them. Hearing this, Peng's expression became extremely grave as he stared at the 3 world lords in front of him. They had all had their emotions and desires extracted, and they only knew to listen to the primogenitor's orders. As such, this battle was unavoidable. Once they fought, Peng knew that he had no chance of winning. However, he had no other choice. Even if he could not win and was killed, he could only give it his all. The others' battles did not change much. For example, Ancestor Realm experts like Jun Wuya and Xiaoqing still had a slight advantage. After all, only 2 world lords had come to help this time. The other forces had not received much help, so the pressure fell on Peng. Peng was under the greatest pressure because he had to face 3 world lords from the origin world. If he was defeated, the 3 world lords would be able to change the entire situation, and Xiaoqing and the others would not be able to withstand them at all. Therefore, even though there were only 2 reinforcements from the origin world this time, they were 2 world lords and had completely broken the balance. Peng couldn't do anything about it. Even if he searched the entire Nightmare Awakened world, he would not be able to find a second world lord. It was impossible for him to have any helpers, so he could only rely on himself. It was indeed difficult for him to do anything by himself. The origin world's reinforcements had come much faster than he had expected. He had thought that he could last until Shao Chun came out of seclusion. But now, it seemed that he would not be able to wait. Not only Yin Peng, but even Shao Qing, Jun Wuya, and the others in the distance were extremely solemn at that moment. They could naturally see how terrible the current situation was, but they were helpless in the face of a battle at the level of a world lord. They couldn't interfere at all and could only worry in their hearts. Under everyone's gaze, the three world lords from the origin world chose to attack and did not give Yin Peng any chance to retaliate. The three of them joined forces and attacked Yin Peng. Facing the three world lords, Yin Peng fought back with all his might, but the result did not change. After just a few moves, Yin Peng was completely suppressed. Although he might be able to hold on for a while, the final result was still very difficult to change. Shao Qing, find a chance to leave. Take Yao Air and Luo Air with you, Jun Wuya said to Shao Qing while fighting. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that this battle was bound to be lost. Once Yin Peng was killed, what awaited everyone would be a complete defeat. Who could stop three world lords? Therefore, Jun Wuya immediately made a choice. He told Shao Qing to find a chance to leave the battlefield and take Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, Xiao Wan, and the others with him. No matter what, it would be best if they had a chance to escape. You don't talk nonsense. No matter what, we have to protect Yao Air and Luo Air. Our lives are not important. If we protect them, we will have a chance when Shao Chun comes out of seclusion. Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and the others had to be protected. They represented the future of the Saint Palace. In this situation, it was impossible for everyone to leave together. Therefore, saving Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao was the last resort. No matter what, they had to protect Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and of course by Ruyue. After being interrupted by Jun Wuya, Shao Qing did not say anything. He knew what Jun Wuya meant. In the end, they did not make it in time for Shao Chun to come out of seclusion. Now that the nightmare world could not be saved, they had to make some sacrifices. Otherwise, everyone would be killed here. Seeing that Shao Qing didn't have any objections, Yin Peng, who was facing the three world lords on the other side, was also injured. He spat out a mouthful of blood and couldn't help but take a few steps back from the impact. Yin Peng, you have no chance of winning this time. Surrender. That way, you'll have a quick death. When the time comes, you will be loyal to the primogenitor. The outcome was clear. Even if Yin Peng still had the strength to fight, so what? The final result could not be changed. Sensing the situation on Yin Peng's side, Jun Wuya did not waste any words and took the initiative to flash in front of Shao Qing, blocking his opponent for him. He fought two primogenitor realm experts by himself as he shouted to Shao Qing, "Let's go." Jun Wuya also did not have much of a chance of winning, but there was no other way. This was the only way to let Shao Qing leave. Only by letting Shao Qing leave would Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and Xiao Wan have a chance of survival. Hearing Jun Wuya's words, Shao Qing knew what it meant if he left. However, in the current situation, he had no choice but to leave. If he insisted on not leaving, then everyone would die here. Even Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao would not be able to escape this calamity. Shao Qing gritted his teeth and prepared to leave. Saving Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao was now everyone's only goal. However, just as Shao Qing was about to leave to save Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao, 7 spatial rifts suddenly appeared on the battlefield. Terrifying auras spread out from them. These auras were all at the World Lord level. This sudden change naturally attracted everyone's attention. Even the 3 World Lords from the primogenitor realm looked at the 7 spatial rifts in confusion. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 2865. 7 spatial cracks had suddenly appeared, and each of them had the aura of a World Lord. This meant that 7 more World Lords had appeared. They didn't know the identities of these 7 people, but everyone's attention was attracted by this sudden change, including Yin Peng and the 3 World Lords of the Origin World. Yin Peng's heart sank. He thought that they were reinforcements from the Origin World. After all, apart from the Origin World, Peng could not think of anyone else who could have such a large number of world lords. As for the possibility that they were reinforcements from other universes, Peng did not even consider that possibility. What kind of joke was this? Which universe could send out 7 world lords at once? Moreover, it was impossible for 7 more world lords from other universes to come and help him. This was even more impossible. As such, Peng immediately thought that the 7 people who had suddenly appeared were reinforcements from the origin world. Facing the world lords, it was already difficult for him to fight back. Now that there were 7 more people, facing 10 world lords, Peng was in complete despair. He could not see a trace of hope. While Peng was in despair, the 3 world lords from the origin world were also quite confused. They knew the current situation of the origin world and knew that it was impossible for them to send out 7 more world lords. Moreover, there was no need for them to do so. With the 3 of them here, the nightmare world was like a turtle in a jar, and they could easily capture it. The primogenitors did not come, so they could send out 7 more world lords, right? Moreover, did the primogenitors still have 7 world lords to send? Since they were not sent by the origin world, who were these 7 people? Everyone had their own thoughts. However, soon, 7 figures appeared from the spatial cracks. When they saw who it was, Xiao Qing and Jun Wuya were stunned. They had never thought that it would be Qin Shu, Honored Flower Fairy, Xin Yuan Ling, and Long Qing. Looks like we made it in time. Looking at the current situation, Honored Flower Fairy said indifferently. The appearance of the 7 world lords changed the situation of the battle. Jun Wuya and the others heaved a sigh of relief. They had been in despair earlier, thinking that these were reinforcements sent by the origin world. If that was the case, Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and the others would be doomed. But now that they saw Qin Shu, Lu Bingning, and the others, Jun Wuya and the others immediately felt like they had survived a disaster. Although they didn't know why Qin Shu and the others had broken through to the level of a world lord, it didn't matter because after Qin Shu and the others appeared, the situation changed again. After Qin Shu's group of 7 appeared, the origin world, which had the absolute advantage, was beaten back to its original state in just a blink of an eye. It didn't have any advantage at all. As soon as 100 Flower Fairy said that, Xin Yuan Ling said from the side, "Let's deal with the current battle first. Shu, 100 Flower, the 5 of you will deal with the 3 world lords. Leave the rest to me and the second sister." Xin Yuan Ling said. Qin Shu and the others nodded in response. With their current strength, it wouldn't be a problem for them to deal with the 3 world lords. As for Xin Yuan Ling and Long Qing, if no one stopped them, they could definitely deal a devastating blow to the origin world, including the ancestor realm experts of the origin world. Qin Shu and the others flashed at the same time and came to Peng's side. Qin Shu looked at the 3 world lords of the origin world in front of him and said indifferently, "Can you still fight?" These words were directed at Peng. Upon hearing these words, Peng, who came back to his senses, quickly realized that these 7 people weren't from the origin world but were on their side. He was overjoyed. With the help of these 7 world lords, they would definitely win this battle. Yes, but you guys are... Although Peng was excited, he was still curious about the identity of Qin Shu and the others. Qin Shu didn't hide this from him. "We are Xiao Chen's wives." Xiao Chen's wives? Upon hearing this, Peng was shocked. Xiao Chen was a world lord of the Great Thousand World, but why were his wives also at the world lord level? This was simply beyond Peng's understanding. How could a universe give birth to so many world lords? Of course, Peng hadn't come into contact with the land of creation. Perhaps he hadn't even heard of it, so he naturally didn't know the secrets of the land of creation. He also didn't know that such a place existed in this world. His heart was filled with shock and doubt, but now is obviously not the time to talk about this. After saying that, Qin Shu didn't wait for Peng's reply and immediately attacked. "Let's get rid of them first. We'll talk about it later." Qin Shu and the other 4 women had already attacked. In the face of the 5 people's attacks, the 3 world lords of the origin world had no choice but to fight back. Seeing this, Peng, who was a step late, also attacked. 6 against 3. In an instant, the situation was completely reversed. The head-on confrontation that had been suppressed previously could be said to be completely exalted now. He joined forces with Tian Yu to deal with one of the World Lords. Both of them didn't show any mercy, and the World Lord of the Origin World couldn't withstand the joint attack of the two. He couldn't find any chance to fight back at all. With overflowing killing intent in her eyes, Tian Yu said coldly, "Kill him if you have the chance." A World Lord wasn't that easy to kill, but now that the two of them had joined forces, there was still a chance. Tian Yu certainly didn't have a good impression of the people of the Origin World. If she had the chance, she would definitely kill them. Peng didn't have any objection to this. He also didn't have a good impression of the Origin World. Naturally, he wouldn't hesitate to kill if he could. The World Lord of the Origin World held on bitterly, and the other two weren't in a good situation either. Facing the joint attack of Qin Shru, 100 Flower Fairy, and the other 3 women, they were also completely suppressed. The chaotic battle between the 8 World Lords was so powerful that it felt like it could destroy the heavens and the earth. Qin Shru and the other 4 women had completely suppressed the 3 World Lords of the Origin World. Xinyuan Ling and Long Qing, who had no one to stop them, started a massacre of the Ancestor Realm experts of the Origin World. Although there were more than a dozen Ancestor Realm experts in the Origin World, they weren't much of an effect in front of Xinyuan Ling and Long Qing. The result of more than a dozen Ancestor Realm experts against 2 World Lords was actually needless to say. The gap between the two sides couldn't be made up with numbers. If there were more than 50 Ancestor Realm experts in the Origin World, they might be able to fight against Xinyuan Ling and Long Qing. Unfortunately, they didn't have that. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2866. Xinyuan Ling and Long Qing mercilessly slaughtered the Origin World's Ancestor Realm Masters. As a result, Jun Weia, Shao Qing, and the others, who were originally fighting these Ancestor Realm Masters, were free to deal with the Emperor Realm cultivators below. This was a chain reaction. Because of the appearance of Qin Shru's group of 7, the Origin World side quickly began to crumble. They didn't put up any effective resistance at all and were already showing signs of defeat. However, this was obviously not the most important thing. Right now, the battle between Qin Shru, Peng, and the others and the 3 Origin World Masters was the most important thing. 6 against 3, there was no need to doubt the outcome. However, if they could kill the 3 Origin World Masters, it would definitely be a great victory. Although the Origin Realm could afford the loss of 3 World Lords, it would still be painful for the Primordial Realm. After all, even in the Origin World, there weren't many Origin World Masters. Losing 3 of them was a real loss. Qin Shru and the other women obviously understood this, so they didn't hold back at all against the 3 Origin World Masters. They were aiming to kill them. The situation was basically set. The Origin World's defeat was certain, unless other reinforcement from the Origin World could arrive in time. However, this was also the most awkward thing for the Origin World now, because they really didn't have any more forces to support the Nightmare Awakened world. Originally, the Origin World naturally wouldn't waste too much battle power on a universe that wasn't very strong. However, with the appearance of Shao Qing, Jun Weia, and now Qin Shru and 100 Flower Fairy, all of the Origin World's plans were completely ruined. Without reinforcements, the Origin World would definitely lose this battle, and it would be wishful thinking to take down the Nightmare Awakened world. 2 against 1. Qin Shru and Gu Lingyao firmly held the advantage. They stabbed out with their Jian E-swords. Facing Qin Shru's attack, the Origin World Master had no choice but to dodge. He took a step back and used spatial shrink, instantly widening the distance between him and Qin Shru. However, at this moment, Gu Lingyao didn't give the others any time to breathe. His figure flashed, and he appeared directly behind the Origin World Master, slamming out his palm. The Origin World Master had no time to react at all. It was impossible to dodge at this moment. This was the disadvantage of facing two people at the same time. If the Origin World Master was facing Qin Shiru alone, his dodging would have been extremely precise. Qin Shiru's sword wouldn't have been able to injure him at all. However, 2 against 1 was different. Although the Origin World Master had dodged Qin Shiru's attack, he had no way of dodging Gu Lingyao attack. On the other hand, Gu Lingyao and Qin Shiru's cooperation could be said to be incomparably exquisite. After living together for so many years, the two women's tacit understanding was incomparable to ordinary people. When they worked together, they complemented each other even more. Seeing Gu Lingyao's palm strike coming at him, the Origin World Master had no way of dodging. He could only choose to take the palm strike head-on. The palm strike hit the Origin World Master's back hard. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body couldn't help but fly forward. At the same time, Qin Shiru had already expected this outcome. The longsword in his hand had already made a second attack, and it went straight for the Origin World Master. At first glance, it looked like the Origin World Master had willingly collided with the tip of Qin Shiru's sword. However, it was obviously not voluntary. Seeing the dense power of Qin Shiru's sword, the Origin World Master would definitely be severely injured if he was hit. At the critical moment, the Origin World Master forcibly twisted his body. Although he forcibly avoided his vital organs, he was still hit by Qin Shiru's sword. Although Qin Shiru didn't have Shao Qian's sword realm, he had already cultivated his sword realm to perfection after so many years. Even though the Origin World Master had tried his best to avoid his vital organs, his body was still pierced by the sword. Blood spurted out continuously. What made him even more uncomfortable was that Gu Lingyao had come at this time. The two women's cooperation was exquisite, and they didn't give him any chance to catch his breath. Faced with such a situation, the Origin World Master could only brace himself to resist, even though his aura was already somewhat weak. However, he had already begun to think of a way to escape in his heart. He also transmitted his voice to the other two. Let's retreat. There's no hope of winning. These so-called new martialists had only been deprived of their 7 emotions and 6 desires, but it didn't mean that they were fools. In addition to not having lust, they could also think like normal people. They weren't puppets that only knew how to fight. Therefore, even though he knew that he was no match for them, he took the initiative to suggest a retreat. In the current situation, there was no chance at all. Qin Shiru's 5 women and Yin Peng's strength had completely crushed them. They weren't at the same level at all. The disadvantage in terms of numbers was too great. If this continued, the 3 of them would probably die here. Don't think that the world lords were truly immortal. Even the primogenitors weren't truly immortal. However, the primogenitors were too powerful compared to this world. Basically, there wasn't much power that could kill them. However, if little Qing took action, the primogenitors could still be killed. Especially in a one-on-one situation, little Qing could definitely kill the primogenitors. To put it bluntly, the so-called immortality was only because there wasn't enough power to kill you. That was why it was called immortality. For example, when a world master faced an ancestor, he was immortal. No matter how the ancestor attacked, it wouldn't pose a fatal threat to him. However, what if he faced an enemy who was also a world master? The enemy's strength wasn't any weaker than his. At this time, there was no such thing as immortality. Hearing this, the other 2 world lords of the Origin world didn't hesitate to agree with him. They also knew that since Qin Shiru and the other women had appeared, there was no chance of winning this battle. Therefore, retreating was the only choice unless they wanted to die here. However, what was the point of dying in battle? To put it bluntly, it was a pointless death. It was completely useless. The 3 of them reached a consensus and began to try to escape. Sensing this, 100 Flower Fairy's eyes were overflowing with killing intent. Sister Shueiro, Sister Lingyao, don't worry about that person. The 4 of us will work together and kill as many of us as we can. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 28:67. Seeing that the three of them wanted to escape, Flower Fairy made a prompt decision. She ordered Qin Shuru and Gu Lingyao to ignore that person and join her. The four of them worked together to keep the World Lord in front of them. Seeing that the three of them wanted to escape, Flower Fairy made a prompt decision. She ordered Qin Shuru and Gu Lingyao to ignore that person and join her. The four of them worked together to keep the World Lord in front of them. If the two of them worked together, it would be difficult to keep the World Lord if he wanted to leave. However, it was different when there were four of them. Since they couldn't keep all three of them at the same time, they could at least keep one of them. This was the second best option. It was difficult to keep all three of them at the same time, so they had to use all their strength to keep one of them. The person that Flower Fairy and Hong Xiu were dealing with was the one with the most serious injuries. He was also the weakest of the three. They had the highest chance of keeping him, so they naturally chose him as their target. Pick the weakest one, especially at a time like this. They naturally chose the one with the highest chance of keeping the World Lord. Hearing Flower Fairy's words, Qin Shuru and Gu Lingyao instantly understood what she meant. Without hesitation, they left the person in front of them and went straight for Flower Fairy and Hong Xiu, completely blocking the World Lord's escape route. Seeing that Qin Shuru and the other two girls had all targeted the World Lord, although the other two wanted to save him, they knew very well that they couldn't do so at this time. If they insisted on saving him, they would only put themselves in danger in the end. Therefore, the best choice at this time was to retreat. The two of them were very straightforward. Or rather, after losing their 7 emotions and 6 desires, they didn't care about such things at all. Because without emotions, you wouldn't even know what friends and brothers were. Faced with such a situation, you would only choose what you felt was the most correct choice. Therefore, the remaining 2 people didn't hesitate at all to turn around and leave. This was especially true for the World Lord who had been fighting fiercely with Qin Shuru and Gu Lingyao. Without Qin Shuru and Gu Lingyao stopping him, he turned around without hesitation and instantly disappeared from where he stood. As for the other World Lord who was fighting against Yin Peng and Tian Yu, although Yin Peng and Tian Yu were blocking him, he still managed to escape successfully. As the World Lords chose to retreat, the rest of the people also chose to retreat and rushed in the direction of the space passage. They had simply been utterly defeated, and they hadn't stopped or hesitated at all. Along with this scene, it meant that the origin world had been completely defeated. Moreover, they would probably have to pay the price of a World Lord. Qin Shuru and the other 5 had completely surrounded the World Lord. After the origin world had retreated, Xin Yuanling and Long Qing had also come over. 8 World Lords attacked at the same time and wanted to kill a World Lord. The final result was self-evident. Under the joint attack of the 8 people, the World Lord couldn't do anything at all. He couldn't even defend himself, let alone counterattack. Escaping was out of the question. Soon, he was severely injured. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before he was killed. The goal of Qin Shuru and the other 5 was very simple, which was to kill this World Lord. They had let go of the other 2 World Lords and only left this one behind. Their goal was to kill this World Lord. If that wasn't the case, why would they leave him behind? The fall of a World Lord was something that no one present had ever seen before. Even Yin Peng and Qin Shuru hadn't seen the fall of a World Lord. After all, in other times, it was basically impossible for a World Lord to fall. This was because it was very difficult to kill a World Lord in a 1-on-1, 2-on-1, or 3-on-1 situation. The situation of 8 World Lords besieging a World Lord was even more impossible under normal circumstances. It was also because of this special time that everyone was able to witness such a scene. Blood kept coming out of his mouth. Besieged by Qin Shuru and the other 5 people, the World Lord was at the end of his rope. Around them, many people from Great Rock Palace, Shaoqing, Jun Wuya, and the others were watching the battle with a complicated expression. They might be witnessing the fall of a World Lord with their own eyes. Time passed slowly. It had to be said that the vitality of a World Lord was very strong. Under the joint attack of Qin Shuru and the other 5 people, a full 4 hours had passed, but the World Lord was still alive. His huge vitality allowed him to hold on for 4 hours. But so what? The result was already predetermined. In the end, under the joint attack of Qin Shuru and the other 5 people, the World Lord still died. The 8 people's attacks hit at the same time. His vitality dissipated quickly and his soul was destroyed. However, after the World Lord was killed, his corpse exploded. No one had expected that after the World Lord died, his corpse would explode. However, after the corpse exploded, a terrifying spiritual energy instantly spread out. This spiritual energy was the lifetime cultivation of the World Lord. It was extremely powerful. Such rich and pure spiritual energy spread in all directions. Under the shroud of this spiritual energy, everyone present felt extremely comfortable. Besides, the cultivation in their bodies seemed to have started to improve automatically with the help of this spiritual energy. This is, someone said in disbelief. They had never felt such a feeling before. The World Lord was dead, but it seemed to have given everyone a great opportunity. His huge lifetime of cultivation seemed to have formed a spiritual energy storm, enveloping everyone in it. And this spiritual energy was completely different from ordinary spiritual energy. There was no need to refine it at all. It would enter one's body on its own and help improve one's cultivation. There is no need to explain how precious this spiritual energy of a World Lord was. At this moment, no one present was foolish. They quickly understood that this was a great opportunity for them. Who would have thought that a World Lord would leave behind such blessings after his death? This was simply like rain from the heavens. In an instant, everyone went crazy. Compared to the others, Qin Shuru, Flower Fairy, Xin Yuanling, Yin Peng, and the others were relatively calm. After all, there were also World Lords, and the spiritual energy of a World Lord wasn't very useful to them. The attraction was also very small, so it wasn't worth going crazy over. But looking at this scene, they couldn't help but lament inwardly. Perhaps only a World Lord could do this. Even after his death, he was still incomparably shocking. He was the true master of a universe. After his death, he turned into a spiritual rain that filled the sky to benefit the people. Perhaps this is the true meaning of being a World Lord, Xin Yuanling said with a sigh. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 2868. Even if they were killed, they would still benefit the common people. Perhaps this was the true meaning of being a World Lord. Even if they were killed, they would still benefit the common people. Perhaps this was the true meaning of being a World Lord. They were the masters of the universe and also the protectors. Even if they died, they could still bring blessings to all living beings. Under the cover of the rich spiritual energy, many of the people present directly broke through the barrier of their cultivation level and completed their breakthroughs. To the people of the Great Rock Palace, this was definitely a great opportunity. They thought that the cultivation of a World Lord had turned into a great opportunity that helped them complete their breakthroughs. Many thanks. Yin Peng took the initiative to cup his hands and thank Xin Yuanling and the others. This time, Xin Yuanling and the others had contributed greatly to stopping the Origin World's attack. However, they did not mind. After all, they had rushed over mainly because of Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and the others. If Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and the others were not in the nightmare-awakened world, Xin Yuanling and the others would not have rushed over in such a hurry. They had temporarily resolved the crisis. After all, after this defeat, the Origin World would not have the energy to organize another attack for a short period of time. Only when the battles in other universes accelerated would the Origin World be able to attack the nightmare-awakened world again. However, this was hard to say. Once the primogenitors knew about Xin Yuanling and the others, they might personally take action. As such, they could not let down their guard. Brother Yin Peng, although the Origin World's people have retreated, we still need to arrange people to closely monitor the spatial channel. If there are any abnormal movements, we need to know immediately. Of course, they still needed to arrange people to guard the spatial channel. Of course, this task would be completed by the people of the Great Rock Palace. Peng did not have any objections to this. After the battle ended, some people were left to guard the spatial channel, while the others returned to the Great Rock Palace. Qin Shiru and the others could not wait to see Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and Xiao Wan. On the way back to the Great Rock Palace, Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and Xiao Wan had rushed over after hearing the news. When they saw Qin Shiru and the others, they happily greeted them. Mother. Seeing Qin Shiru and the others, the three children were very happy. At the same time, Qin Shiru and the others were the same. Seeing that they were safe and sound, they let out sighs of relief. Qin Shiru looked at the three children. Their parents were not by their side, and the situation in the outside world was like this. It was conceivable that these three little fellows had suffered a lot. Fortunately, they were safe in the end, and there were no accidents. After this incident, the three children had obviously matured a lot. They smiled and nodded. Peng, who was standing at the side, was aware that he did not disturb them. Looking at the family who had reunited after a long time, Peng just stood quietly at the side. However, he still had a question in his heart, and that was the cultivation level of Qin Shiru and the others. No matter how hard Peng thought about it, he could not figure out how so many world lords could be born in this universe. It was completely illogical. He had never even heard of such a thing. Peng had seen with his own eyes that there were as many as 7 world lords in this great wide world. In addition to Xiao Chun, who he had never seen before, there were at least 8 world lords in the great wide world. How could such a thing happen? If he had not seen it with his own eyes, Peng would never have believed it. However, now that the facts were in front of him, it was impossible for him not to believe it. Peng had always been curious about the reason why so many world lords were born in the great wide world. He did not pay attention to Peng at the side. At this moment, Qin Shiru and the other women's attention was on the 3 children. They had always been worried about them. Now that they had seen them, they naturally had endless things to say. This was what it felt like to be a mother. After chatting for a while, Xin Yuanling finally spoke up. Let's talk about it when we go back. After all, this is not the place to talk. As a man, Xin Yuanling was naturally calmer than the women. In this regard, Qin Shiru and the other women did not refuse. After greeting Peng, Xin Yuanling stayed, and the women followed Xiao Yao and the other 2 to their residence. After watching everyone leave, Xin Yuanling said to Peng apologetically, Brother Peng, I'm sorry. Haha, it's nothing. It's human nature. Brother Xin Yuan, shall we have a drink? After this battle, Peng had gotten to know Xin Yuanling and took the initiative to invite him for a drink. Xin Yuanling did not refuse and nodded readily. After that, the 2 of them went to Peng's cave residence. As for other matters, naturally, they would be handled by the subordinates. The 2 of them sat opposite each other. In the company of good wine, their relationship quickly became close. Of course, first of all, Peng thanked Xin Yuanling and the others for their help. He frankly said that if it were not for Xin Yuanling and the others, this battle would not have ended like this. After all, it was impossible for him to fight 1 against 3. Brother Xin Yuan, I'd like to propose a toast to you. Thank you for your help. Brother Peng, you're treating me as an outsider. You and I have the same purpose. Since that's the case, it's only right that we help each other. Haha, well said. I'm being pretentious. As they spoke, they drank. The wine that Peng took out was indeed good. It could be seen that this was a treasure that he had collected. As for Xin Yuanling, although he was not a wine addict, he also liked good wine very much. After drinking to his heart's content, Peng finally could not help but ask, Brother Xin Yuan, actually, I've always had a question. Oh, Brother Peng, there's no harm in asking. According to what we know, there is only one world lord in each universe. But why would the vast 1,000 worlds? Before Peng finished speaking, Xin Yuanling had already understood his meaning and said with a smile, Brother Peng, have you heard of the land of creation? In response, Peng shook his head. He had indeed not heard of the land of creation. Just like Xiao Chan and the others, they did not know of such a place at all. If it were not for the bee slaves, Xiao Chun and the others would not have known about it. In this regard, Xin Yuanling did not hide anything. He briefly explained the land of creation to Yin Peng and learned that Yin Peng and the others had broken through to World Lord in the land of creation. Moreover, there was the existence of the spirit of heaven and earth. Even Yin Peng could not help but be shocked. As a World Lord, he did not know that there was such a place in this world, and that there was even a spirit of heaven and earth. He could not help but sigh sincerely. I see. Seeking collection, monthly votes, recommendations. Chapter 2869. Yin Peng was indeed shocked by Xian Yuanling's description of the land of creation. He had thought that as a world lord, he had a good understanding of the world and knew many of its secrets. Yin Peng was indeed shocked by Xian Yuanling's description of the land of creation. He had thought that as a world lord, he had a good understanding of the world and knew many of its secrets. However, who would have thought that there would be a place like the land of creation and a world spirit? All of a sudden, he regretted not looking for Xiao Chen earlier. If he had done so earlier, he might have been able to enter the place of creation and see the place of legends. Yeah, what a pity. If only I had met Brother Xin Yuan earlier, Yin Peng said regretfully after drinking some wine. In response, Xin Yuanling only smiled and did not reply. The Nightmare World's crisis had been resolved for now, and within the land of creation, Lu Bingning, Lin Yuan, Gong Nantian, and the others had been patiently waiting for Xiao Chun and the others. Now, all they had to do was wait for Xiao Chun and the others to come out of seclusion, and then they would be able to fight the primogenitors. Every day, Xiao Qing would pay close attention to Xiao Chun and the others. Among them, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were still the two who were making the fastest progress. If nothing went wrong, the two of them should not be far from coming out of seclusion. Among the world lords, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's strength was definitely at the top, which was why their seclusion had gone so smoothly. In actuality, Little Qing had never seen anyone who could cultivate to such a level. After all, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were just ordinary people. They did not have the advantages of the primogenitors and ancient creatures, nor were they favored by the heavens and earth. Even so, the two of them had relied on their own efforts to cultivate to such a level. In fact, if it was not for the laws of the heavens and earth, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun would have been able to break through the restrictions of the world lords with their ordinary bloodlines. Little Qing was very satisfied with Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. She could foresee that once the two of them finished their seclusion, their strength would most likely surpass that of ordinary ancient creatures and could rival the primogenitors. This was something that Little Qing had not expected, but to everyone else, this was good news. The stronger Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were, the higher their chances of victory would be. Several days passed in a row. In the seclusion grounds of Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, the sea of blood gradually became violet. This was a sign that they were about to come out of seclusion. At the same time, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's physical bodies had been completely formed. Their appearances did not change much, but the power contained in them was completely incomparable to before. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. Once their physical bodies were formed, it basically meant that their closed-door training was a success. Moreover, a terrifying power uncontrollably spread out from their bodies. Judging from their auras, they were not weaker than the ancient creatures like the beast slaves. They were even slightly stronger than the ancient creatures. This was what surprised Little Qing. With the formation of their physical bodies, the unbearable pain was diluted by a lot. At the same time, Little Qing's blood essence had long been refined by the two of them and merged with their bodies. The main source of this physical body's transformation was Little Qing's blood essence. It was the blood essence of a spirit of heaven and earth. This was not something that could be described as a treasure. Moreover, Little Qing had also taken out many treasures. Therefore, it was not an exaggeration to say that Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's new physical bodies were refined from the best things in the world. After all, any item that Xiao Chun took out was definitely the most precious treasure in the world. The sea of blood became violent, and it was obvious that the sea of blood was madly pouring into Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's bodies. This sea of blood was Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's blood. The majestic sea of blood was directly absorbed by Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, and it disappeared very quickly. At the same time, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun slowly opened their eyes. The corners of their mouths unconsciously curled into a faint smile. They succeeded. Their physical bodies were successfully reforged. Together with the improvement of their souls, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun finally completed the transformation. This was the most fundamental transformation from the inside out. At this moment, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had broken through the category of ordinary living beings and became unique existences that enjoyed the protection of heaven and earth like ancient living beings. Is this the power of ancient living beings? The unbearable pain had long disappeared. Feeling the surging power in his body, Xiao Chun said softly, "How is it? Not bad, right?" Just as Xiao Chun finished speaking, little Qing appeared in front of him out of nowhere. Hearing this, Xiao Chun replied with a smile, "It's indeed not bad. I didn't even dare to think about such power before. Your and Lin Yun's performance was indeed beyond my expectations. I thought it was already commendable that you could succeed. However, no one expected that the two of you could do so well. Or rather, you have such great potential. The current you is probably not weaker than ordinary ancient living beings. Even among ancient living beings, you are considered the top. Your combat power is close to those ancestors." Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had indeed given little Qing a great surprise. Hearing this, Xiao Chun was secretly delighted. This way, there would be more hope for the following battle. Xiao Chun and Lin Yun came out of seclusion at the same time. Seeing the two of them, Lu Bingning, Lin Yuan, and Gong Nantian were all delighted. After all, it was indeed great news for them that the two of them had come out of seclusion. However, facing Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, everyone felt pressure. Even though they were all world lords, in front of Lin Yun and Xiao Chun, the pressure did not decrease. Instead, it increased. They could not see through Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's strength at all. This feeling shocked everyone. This could only mean that Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were completely different from before. After successfully coming out of seclusion, the two of them were also very happy. They chatted for a while and asked little Qing about what had happened during this time. In the end, Xiao Chun asked curiously because he did not see Qin Shu, Xin Yuan Ling, and Long Qing. Where are Xue Ro and the others? They went to the awakened world. Hearing this, Lu Bingning replied. After hearing that Qin Shu and the others had gone to the awakened world, Xiao Chen nodded, but he could not help but feel worried. However, Mu Lingxian, Mo He, and Dongfang Yun were still in seclusion, so it was not time yet. As such, Xiao Chun could only say to little Qing, "I want to go to the awakened world first." Xiao Chun was worried about Qin Shu and the others' safety, so he planned to leave the origin world and go to the awakened world first. Little Qing did not refuse, as Mu Lingxian and the others were about to come out of seclusion as well. However, she only reminded little Qing, "Be careful of the primogenitors. If they know about you, they might not be able to stop themselves from attacking." Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. In a chapter. Chapter 2870. Little Qing did not stop Xiao Chun from going to the nightmare awakened world. Even if she did, Xiao Chun most likely would not listen. Little Qing understood Xiao Chen's personality. Little Qing did not stop Xiao Chun from going to the nightmare awakened world. Even if she did, Xiao Chen most likely would not listen. Little Qing understood Xiao Chen's personality. However, with Xiao Chen's current strength, as long as he was not surrounded by the primogenitors, he should not be in any danger. Even if he faced the primogenitors head-on, if Xiao Chen wanted to leave, the primogenitors would not be able to stop him. This was the change after Xiao Chen's strength had increased. Now, Xiaoqun was no longer as helpless as before when facing the primogenitors. As such, Xiaoqun would not be in too much danger heading to the Nightmare Awakened world. This was the main reason why little Qing had agreed to let Xiaoqun go, which was to increase his strength. Knowing what little Qing was thinking, Xiaoqun nodded and said, "I'll go to the Nightmare Awakened world and bring them back. They won't be staying for long." After thinking about it, he decided that staying in the Nightmare Awakened world was not a good idea. It would be safer to bring Qin Shi, Xiao Yao, and Xiao Lao back to the Creation Origin world. Little Qing did not refuse and nodded as she said, "Take this and contact me when the time comes. I'll open the entrance for you." With little Qing's agreement, Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and the others could naturally enter the Creation Origin world. They did not have to go through the Soul Channel like Xiaoqun and the others. Xiaoqun nodded, and Lin Yan also wanted to bring Lin Feng and Lin Shui back. She was also worried that the two of them would be outside. Little Qing did not refuse, and Xiaoqun and Lin Yan quickly set off. "Be careful. See you at the Creation Origin world." "You too." They opened a spatial tunnel at the same time and left quickly. Xiaoqun was alone, while Lin Yan was accompanied by Lu Bingning and the other girls. Xiaoqun and Lin Yan naturally had the ability to open a spatial tunnel since they already possessed the strength of ancient creatures. Therefore, the two of them could leave the place of creation without little Qing's help. After Xiaoqun came out of closed-door cultivation, the primogenitors in the primordial world also heard about the Nightmare world's defeat. After hearing this, Green Ancestor asked curiously, "The Nightmare world isn't that powerful, right? Even 3 world lords failed." "Humph, you don't know about this. There's help. As far as I know, those people are Xiaoqun and the rest. However, they have already broken through to become a world lord," Ancestor Mu said coldly. Naturally, what happened in the Nightmare world could not be hidden from the primogenitors. Not only could it not be hidden, but the primogenitors had also immediately found out about Qin Shi and the others' identities. Qin Shi and the others had gone to help the Nightmare world in time, resulting in the Nightmare world's defeat. Moreover, one of their world lords had been killed, and only 2 of them had managed to escape. Hearing Ancestor Mu's words, the other primogenitors closed their eyes and did not say anything. In all honesty, the Nightmare world's defeat was not enough to make the primogenitors' expressions change. What they cared about was the appearance of Qin Shi and the others. Looks like they obtained many benefits from the Creation Origin world. So many of them have broken through to become world lords, one of the primogenitors said after a while. Qin Shi and the others' breakthroughs were evidently due to the Creation Origin world. Otherwise, they would not have been able to break through to become world lords. After speaking, the primogenitors' gaze swept across everyone before falling on Xiaozu. "Since they've appeared, let's bring them back. Xiaozu, tell Hu Huang to go." Hu Huang was also an ancient era creature, but he was on the Origin world side. There were not many ancient era creatures in this world, but not every ancient era creature was against the Origin world. Naturally, some ancient era creatures supported the Origin world, and Hu Huang was one of them. Beast Slave and the others had long since known that Hu Huang had joined forces with the Origin world. In fact, from the start, Beast Slave and the others had never thought of roping in Hu Huang because it was simply impossible. As an ancient era creature, Hu Huang had always had a good relationship with the Origin world. As such, it was simply impossible for him to deal with the Origin world. Everyone had their own ambitions. After all, it was impossible for everyone to support something. If some people supported it, there would definitely be others who opposed it. Hearing this, Xiaozu silently nodded and did not say anything else. "All right, there won't be any problems if Hu Huang goes personally. We don't have to worry about the Nightmare world for now. Let's deal with the battles in the other universes first." The appearance of Qin Shi and the others made the primogenitors feel even more pressure, so they had to act faster. Time was of the essence. If they could complete the creation of a new world before the battle with Little Blue started, the Origin world's chances of winning would be much higher. However, from the current situation, it would probably be very difficult to complete it. However, the faster they acted, the better it would be for the origin world. The matters of the nightmare world were handed over to Hu Huang. After dispersing, Qiu Zhu returned to his residence. Currently, Qiu Zhu was not the only one there. Hu Huang was also temporarily staying there. The middle-aged man in golden robes was Hu Huang. Seeing Qiu Zhu return, Hu Huang lightly smiled and said, "What's wrong? Why do you look so bad?" Hu Huang and Qiu Zhu were old friends and knew each other very well. As such, when he saw Qiu Zhu, before he could say anything, Hu Huang could tell that Qiu Zhu was in a very bad mood. Hearing this, Qiu Zhu said helplessly, "It's not just me. You can't run away either. You'll probably be very busy during this period of time." "Oh, it has to do with me?" "Of course, they want you to go to the nightmare world. Xiao Qian's wife and children are in the nightmare world, and they hope you can bring them back. Even if you can't bring them back, you have to kill them." Qiu Zhu did not hide the fact that he was sending Hu Huang to the nightmare world because he had said before that he would not betray the origin world. Last time, he had already made an exception by letting Xiao Qian and the others go. This time, Qiu Zhu did not have any reason to be merciful, so he told Hu Huang everything. Hearing this, Hu Huang lightly smiled and said, "I thought it was something big. It's a small matter. I'll go personally." Hearing this, Qiu Zhu did not say anything. With Hu Huang's strength, it would not be a problem for him to go personally. After all, even among the ancient era's living creatures, Hu Huang's strength was definitely quite strong. He was even stronger than the beast slaves and with spirits. As for Qin Shiru and the others, even if they broke through to the World Lord level, they would not be a match for Hu Huang. Qiu Zhu was very confident about this. Chapter 2871. He knew Hu Huang's strength very well. Unless Little Green made a move, there was no way Hu Huang would fail this time. However, Little Green couldn't make a move because the primogenitors were watching him closely. He knew Hu Huang's strength very well. Unless Little Green made a move, there was no way Hu Huang would fail this time. However, Little Green couldn't make a move because the primogenitors were watching him closely. This was also why the primogenitors hadn't shown any desire to personally take action during this period of time. The main reason was Little Qing, because the primogenitors had to keep a close eye on Little Qing. At the same time, Little Qing was the greatest threat to them. Other than Little Green, the others were nothing in the eyes of the primogenitors. They might be troublesome, but they definitely weren't dangerous. Therefore, if Little Green made a move, the primogenitors would definitely stop her immediately. In other words, Hu Huang didn't have to worry about Little Green's threat at all. Seeing that Qiu Zhu was still a little hesitant, Hu Huang's face turned serious. "Are you still hesitating about these things? Do you still think you're wrong?" "Not really. I just don't know if the new world is right or wrong. What's there to think about? The winner is always right, and the loser is always wrong. It's that simple. If we win, then the new world is right, and it's the world that everyone wants. What do you think?" Qiu Zhu actually didn't really agree with the creation of the new world. He always felt that the creation of the new world was too hasty and direct. Moreover, there were still many details that needed to be perfected. It wasn't something that could be solved by simply and crudely extracting the emotions and desires of everyone. This was also why Qiu Zhu couldn't reach a consensus with the other primogenitors on many issues. However, things had already developed to this point. Even if Qiu Zhu stopped now, it would be useless. Compared to Qiu Zhu, Hu Huang had thought things through very clearly. Everything was just a matter of winning and losing. Was it wrong to say that the new world was right? Perhaps, but he might not be completely wrong. So to put it bluntly, whether he was right or wrong would be determined by the outcome of the battle. The winner was always right. This had been the truth since ancient times. The loser had no right to speak. Hu Huang stood up and patted Qiu Zhu on the shoulder. "All right, it's been so many years, but you're still so sentimental. You've already come this far. Can you still turn back? I'll be back soon." Hearing this, Qiu Zhu nodded. "Perhaps. Be careful. If possible, try to capture them alive." In the face of Qiu Zhu's sudden words, Hu Huang took a deep look at him. He knew that Xiao Zhu was feeling compassionate, but he didn't point it out. He just left a few words and took a step forward, instantly disappearing into the void. We'll see. If it's possible, I'll hold back. They didn't know that Hu Huang was already on his way. In the nightmare world, Qin Shiru and the others lived quite peacefully. They spent every day with Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and Xiao Wan. Of course, Xiao Qing, Bai Riyue, and Jun Weiyao were also there. Bai Riyue was naturally the happiest about Qin Shiru and the others' arrival. She didn't care what their cultivations were like. She only cared that they were safe. Xiao Qing and Jun Weiyao heard about the land of creation from the others. After hearing that Qin Shiru and the others had broken through to the World Lord realm with little Qing's help, and that Xiao Qun and the others were still in closed-door cultivation, Xiao Qing and the others relaxed. As long as they were fine, it was fine. Moreover, everyone knew that their trip to the land of creation had been quite smooth and not as bumpy as they had expected. Everything had been quite perfect. Now, they just had to wait for Xiao Chun and the others to come out of closed-door cultivation so that they could start the final battle with the origin world. Just like the past few days, the family chatted in the courtyard and enjoyed a rare moment of leisure. However, at that moment, a figure walked out of the spatial channel in the nightmare world. It was none other than Hu Huang, who had hurried over from the origin world. With his speed, it wouldn't take him long to reach the nightmare world. He had no intention of hiding himself, and just openly entered the nightmare awakened world. He was immediately discovered by the people from the Great Rock Palace, and soon, dozens of them surrounded Hu Huang. "Who are you?" Facing the Great Rock Palace's cultivators' questions, Hu Huang slightly smiled. Following this, rays of golden light shot out from his body, seeming to casually shoot out in all directions. However, under the envelopment of the golden light, the several dozen Great Peng Palace cultivators that had originally surrounded Hu Huang were instantly killed. The golden light easily pierced through and tore apart their bodies, obliterating their souls. Without even making a move, Hu Huang had dealt with dozens of people. This was not difficult at all for him, and it could even be said to be very simple. It was as simple as eating and drinking. There was no difficulty at all. At the same time, Hu Huang's divine sense spread out. As an ancient being, Hu Huang's divine sense naturally covered a wide range. Soon, a smile appeared on Hu Huang's face as he softly muttered, "Found him." With that, Hu Huang took a step forward, and his figure instantly disappeared from the spot. In just an instant, Hu Huang appeared above the Great Rock Palace, and a terrifying pressure descended from the sky. Upon sensing this pressure, the faces of Qin Shiru and the other women who had been chatting and laughing immediately sank. Without any time to say anything, they all soared into the air and arrived above the Great Rock Palace. In a short time, Qin Shiru, 100-Flower Fairy, Guling Yao, Tian Yue, Hong Xiu, Xin Yuanling, Long Qing, Yin Peng, and the others arrived before Hu Huang. Of course, there were also progenitor realm experts like Xiao Qing and Jun Wuya. Surrounded by so many people, Hu Huang did not seem too worried. Instead, he had a playful look on his face as he swept his gaze over them one by one. 1, 2, 3 for... In the end, Hu Huang's gaze stopped on Qin Shiru, and he said with a smile, "No more, no less. It seems that everyone is here. This saved me a lot of trouble. Who are you?" One of the progenitor realm elders from the Great Rock Palace asked, completely unaware of what Hu Huang was saying. The elder was naturally displeased that this person had suddenly appeared in the Great Rock Palace and acted so arrogantly. Furthermore, there are 8 world lords in the Great Rock Palace right now. So how could they allow someone to act so presumptuously? However, this person clearly didn't understand what kind of person Hu Huang was. As soon as the words left his mouth, Hu Huang glanced at him coolly, then flicked his finger, sending out a beam of golden light. At the same time, Yin Peng sensed that something was wrong and hurriedly shouted, "Stop! Stop! Begging for monthly votes! Begging for recommendations!" Therefore, even though Hu Huang had given them unprecedented pressure, they still didn't want to follow him to the origin world. Even if they had to fight to the death, they wouldn't go to the origin world. Hu Huang smiled and shook his head in disappointment. What a pity. You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. I thought you were all smart people. Then, without waiting for anyone to reply, Hu Huang's figure disappeared without any warning. In the next second, he suddenly appeared in front of Long Qing. Long Qing was caught off guard and couldn't see Hu Huang's movements at all. In the face of this sudden scene, although everyone reacted immediately, they were still half a step too late. Hu Huang gently pressed his palm against Long Qing's abdomen, and then a huge force instantly sent Long Qing flying. Since you don't want to cooperate, I can only take you away by force. Long Qing, Qin Shiru, and the others didn't want to go to the origin world, so it wasn't a big problem. They could just take them away by force. Seeing that Long Qing was sent flying by Hu Huang, Xin Yuanling, Qin Shu, and the others naturally couldn't turn a blind eye to it. They immediately attacked. Even though they were facing an ancient creature like Hu Huang, they had no intention of retreating. After all, there was no way to retreat now. There was no hope of running away. After all, they couldn't compare to Hu Huang in terms of speed. Therefore, they could only fight to the death. In the face of everyone's attack, Hu Huang was neither in a hurry nor in a hurry. Even though he was surrounded, Hu Huang still had a faint smile on his face because these people couldn't cause him any trouble at all. Although the 8 world lords looked scary, they weren't enough to make Hu Huang take them seriously. He fought against Qin Shiru and the other 8 world lords and a group of other warriors by himself. However, the final result was obvious. Hu Huang relied on his powerful strength to crush Qin Shiru and the others. He didn't kill Qin Shiru and the others. After all, Xiaozhu had said that it was best to capture them alive if possible. Although Hu Huang scoffed at this, he still chose to respect Xiaozhu and didn't hurt Qin Shiru and the others from the Sacred Palace. However, compared to Qin Shiru and the others, the experts from Great Peng Palace didn't receive such good treatment. After sending Yin Peng flying with a palm, Hu Huang sneered in the face of more than a dozen experts from Great Peng Palace who attacked at the same time. You guys don't receive such good treatment. As he spoke, a golden light appeared around Hu Huang's body. Just like before, rays of golden light shot out from Hu Huang's body, forming rays of golden sword light. In an instant, the surrounding experts of the Great Rock Palace were all killed. They weren't even able to touch the corner of Hu Huang's clothes before they were killed. Everyone present was terrified by such an outcome. This was the absolute difference in strength. They couldn't even get close to Hu Huang. Hu Huang didn't show any mercy to the people from Great Peng Palace. The primogenitors had said that they would bring the people from the Sacred Palace back, but they hadn't mentioned the Great Rock Hall. Therefore, in Hu Huang's opinion, the people from the Great Rock Hall were dispensable. The battle ended very quickly, and Qin Shiru and the others had been injured early on. Hu Huang smiled as he looked at Qin Shiru and the others who were struggling to get up. All right, this boring game should be over. Let's go back to the origin world with me. As he spoke, Hu Huang's figure disappeared and appeared in front of Qin Shiru and the others in the next second. A terrifying pressure completely enveloped Qin Shiru and the others, making them unable to resist at all. Even moving was extremely difficult. Everything seemed to be simple to the extreme. In the face of Hu Huang's powerful strength, no one had any power to fight back. However, just when Hu Huang thought that his mission had been easily completed, an indifferent voice came from the sky. How dare you? Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me. Chapter 2873. Just when everyone thought that they were doomed, including Hu Huang, and that the mission was completed, an indifferent voice was suddenly heard in the sky. Hearing the voice, everyone looked in the direction of the voice. Hu Huang also turned his head. Under everyone's gaze, a spatial crack appeared in the sky, and then Xiao Chun strode out of it. Seeing Xiao Chun, Qin Shiru and the others were delighted. Xiao Chun had come out of closed-door cultivation and had personally come to the nightmare awakened world. Hu Huang said in surprise, "Xiao Chun." Even though Hu Huang did not know Xiao Chun, he had naturally heard of him in the origin world and had seen Xiao Chun's portrait. As such, as soon as Xiao Chun appeared, Hu Huang recognized him. However, his surprise only lasted for a moment before a smile appeared on Hu Huang's face. He had thought that he would only come to the nightmare awakened world to capture Qin Shi and the others alive. He knew that Xiao Chun was the true threat to the primogenitors, but Xiao Chun had remained in the creation ground, so the primogenitors could not do anything to him. Who would have thought that his trip to the nightmare awakened world would draw out Xiao Chun? This was a pleasant surprise. After all, if he could capture Xiao Chun alive, it would be much more useful than capturing Tin Qin Shi and the others. As such, Hu Huang quickly turned his attention to Xiao Chun. "I was wondering who it was, so it was you. Looks like I've searched high and low only to find you by chance," Hu Huang said as he coldly laughed as he stared at Xiao Chun. That was indeed the case. He had not been able to do anything to Xiao Chun, but who would have thought that Xiao Chun would come out on his own? This was quite a pleasant surprise. Seeing the smirk on Hu Huang's face, Xiao Chun naturally knew what he was thinking. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, revealing a cold smirk as well. "Is that so? Talk to me after you've taken me down." Xiao Chun had naturally seen how Hu Huang had attacked Qin Shi and the others, and he knew that Hu Huang was an ancient being. He had never seen Hu Huang before, so he did not know why Hu Huang was working for the origin world. However, that was not important to Xiao Chun. After all, Hu Huang was an enemy, and he had attacked Qin Shi and the others. Fortunately, he had immediately rushed to the nightmare awakened world after coming out of closed-door cultivation. Otherwise, it was very likely that Qin Shi and the others would have been captured by Hu Huang, and that would have been troublesome. This was the first time he was facing an ancient being. Before, Xiao Chun definitely would not have chosen to face him head-on and would have only thought of a way to retreat. However, after coming out of closed-door cultivation, Xiao Chun's strength was no longer comparable to before. As such, Xiao Chun felt quite excited about fighting an ancient being for the first time. He wanted to personally experience just how powerful an ancient being was and how much difference there was between him and an ancient being. Compared to Xiao Chun's excitement, Hu Huang was quite relaxed. This was because Hu Huang knew that Xiao Chun only had the cultivation of a world lord. As for whether Xiao Chun had broken through during this time, Hu Huang was not worried at all. This was because ordinary beings had reached the limit after becoming a world lord, and it was impossible for them to advance any further. As such, even if Xiao Chun cultivated bitterly for hundreds or thousands of years, he would not be able to break through the barrier of becoming a world lord. As such, Hu Huang was naturally not worried. In front of an ancient being, a world lord could only be beaten up. However, Hu Huang had evidently forgotten something, which was that Xiao Chun had gone to the land of creation, where the world spirit was. As such, not only had Xiao Chun broken through to become a world lord, but he had also obtained a comprehensive new life. His life level was not any weaker than an ancient being like Hu Huang. Xiao Chun did not know what Hu Huang was thinking, and he was not interested in it at all. He did not wait for Hu Huang to reply as soon as he finished speaking. His body disappeared from where he was in an instant and appeared right in front of Hu Huang in the next second. Hu Huang was stunned by such a fast movement. After all, this was not a speed that a world lord could possess. Even compared to himself, Xiao Chun's speed was not inferior at all. How could Xiao Chun possess such a fast speed? However, before Hu Huang could think further, Xiao Chun had already attacked. He threw a punch straight at Hu Huang's face. Seeing this, Hu Huang's eyes turned cold, and he shouted coldly, "You're courting death." He then threw a punch at Xiao Chun's fist without even bothering to evade. The two fists collided with each other, and the space around them was distorted all of a sudden. Their fists intertwined like a whirlpool in water. To be able to distort the space without shattering it directly, this did not mean that both of them were not powerful enough. On the contrary, to be able to do this, It was enough to prove that both of them were too powerful and had extremely precise control of their power. Under the distorted space, cracks quickly appeared. The space could not withstand a collision of Xiao Chun and Hu Huang's fists at all. The cracks spread out like a spider web. Xiao Chun and Hu Huang also felt a terrifying power from each other's fists. In this regard, Xiao Chun was very calm. Although his strength had improved by leaps and bounds, Xiao Chun still did not underestimate these ancient creatures. He had never underestimated any ancient creature. Therefore, Xiao Chun did not find it strange that Hu Huang could erupt with such power. If this had happened in the past, Hu Huang would have definitely snorted. What a joke. How can an ordinary creature make him feel threatened? It was simply a joke. However, after exchanging blows with Xiao Chun, Hu Huang understood that the person in front of him couldn't be judged by common sense. With the dustless sword in hand, this was the true display of Xiao Chun's strength. To Xiao Chun, there was a huge difference between having the dustless sword and not having it. This was because no matter how much Xiao Chun's strength increased, fundamentally, Xiao Chun was still a sword cultivator. Moreover, Xiao Chun had never given up on the sword Dao. It could even be said that Xiao Chun had already walked his own path in the sword Dao. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that Xiao Chun's attainments in the sword Dao were unparalleled in the entire world. Xiao Chun slowly raised his right hand. The dustless sword in his hand emitted a faint red light. His eyes were calm and indifferent. He even looked at Hu Huang with a smile. Be careful. Don't be careless. You. Hearing this, Hu Huang was furious. What did this mean? Was he looking down on him? However, before Hu Huang could say anything, Xiao Chun casually slashed out with his sword. Instantly, a blood-red sword light streaked across the sky. Looking at the blood-red sword aura rushing straight at him, Hu Huang's words, which were already at the tip of his tongue, stopped abruptly. There was nothing he could do about it. Xiao Chen's sword was extremely dangerous. Hu Huang felt his eyelids twitching just looking at it. He did not dare to be careless in the slightest. He did not even have the time to bother arguing with Xiao Chun. He could only focus on dealing with Xiao Chen's sword. Please add it to your collection. Please recommend it. In fact, he seemed to be slightly stronger. Otherwise, he would not have been able to drag Hu Huang into the void to fight. After hearing Qin Shru and the other women's answers, although Yin Peng was still uncertain, he still nodded. In Yin Peng's opinion, it would not be easy for Hu Huang, an ancient creature, to defeat him. However, in this situation, he had no other choice but to believe in Xiao Chun. In this way, everyone in the outside world began to clean up the mess. In the void, the battle between Xiao Chun and Hu Huang continued. Xiao Chun went all out, and Hu Huang did not hold back. The two of them could be said to be evenly matched. For a time, no one could do anything to the other. However, judging from the situation, Xiao Chun seemed to have a slight advantage. After all, Xiao Chun was obviously stronger than Hu Huang in terms of pure attack power. Hu Huang did not have much of a chance of winning against Xiao Chun. Therefore, Hu Huang could only choose to defend. Damn it, Hu Huang cursed in his heart. He had never been so aggrieved. Even when he fought with other ancient creatures, Hu Huang did not feel so aggrieved. However, he could not do anything when facing Xiao Chun. In addition, Xiao Chun was not an ancient creature, but now he had a battle power that was on par with him. This made Hu Huang extremely depressed. In the beginning, he did not understand how Xiao Chun could break through to the Lord of the World. However, Hu Huang had guessed something now. The land of creation. Xiao Chun and the others entered the land of creation. There was no doubt that the spirit of heaven and earth had taken action. It was little Qing who helped Xiao Chun to break through to the Lord of the World. In the whole world, who else could have such an ability besides little Qing? Even the ancestors did not have the ability to help an ordinary creature break through to the level of an ancient creature. However, regardless of whether Shao Chun succeeded in breaking through because of Little Qing's help, Hu Huang had to make a choice as soon as possible. Should he continue to fight with Shao Chun or leave? Hu Huang originally thought that it would be a very simple task. However, with the appearance of Shao Chun, it was obviously impossible for Hu Huang to take Qin Shi and the others away, unless Hu Huang could defeat Shao Chun. However, judging from the current situation, Hu Huang was not confident that he could defeat Shao Chun. The two of them were almost equal in strength. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for Hu Huang to defeat Shao Chun. In this way, there was no objection to continuing to fight with Shao Chun. Moreover, if Shao Chun was not defeated, Hu Huang would not have the opportunity to attack Qin Shi and the others. Therefore, Hu Huang had to make a choice as soon as possible. Should he continue to fight with Shao Chun or give up? On the other hand, Shao Chun's goal was very simple. He wanted to stop Hu Huang. Chapter 2876. Hu Huang left without saying anything. Everything depended on one's strength. Since he couldn't do anything to Shao Chun, it was meaningless for Hu Huang to leave any harsh words. Hu Huang left without saying anything. Everything depended on one's strength. Since he couldn't do anything to Shao Chun, it was meaningless for Hu Huang to leave any harsh words. On the other side, Shao Chun watched Hu Huang leave. He didn't stop him because there was nothing he could do if Hu Huang wanted to leave. However, with Hu Huang's departure, the people from the origin world would come soon. At that time, the primogenitors would probably take action personally. It seems like I have to leave this place as soon as possible. Shao Chun sighed and left. When he returned to the Great Rock Palace, he found that it had been cleaned up. The corpses of those who had been killed by Hu Huang had also been moved away. Of course, these things didn't matter to Shao Chun. Seeing Shao Chun appear, Qin Shi and the other girls took the initiative to welcome him. They were relieved. Shao Chun smiled and nodded at the girls. Then, he came to Shao Qing and Jun Wuya. Father, Master. Although Shao Chun's strength had surpassed Jun Wuya, Shao Chun still respected Jun Wuya very much. Jun Wuya smiled and nodded. He didn't expect that Shao Chun could reach this step and even surpass his master. It's good that you're fine. Shao Qing patted Shao Chun's shoulder gently. Shao Qing hadn't seen Shao Chun for many years. Naturally, he was happy to see him this time. They exchanged pleasantries. Then, Xin Yuan Ling introduced Yin Peng to Shao Chun. Yin Peng was very enthusiastic when facing Shao Chun, not only because of Shao Chun's strength, but also because Yin Peng wanted to join Shao Chun's alliance. Therefore, when he saw Shao Chun for the first time, Yin Peng showed great kindness. Shao Chun smiled and nodded. In the end, Shao Chun said, "Brother Yin, I don't think this place is safe. Brother Yin Peng, I don't think it's safe here. Make some preparations and lead some people from the Great Rock Palace back to the origin world with me. As for the others, have them leave the nightmare world and find a place to hide." Shao Chun planned to lead Qin Shi and the others back to the origin world. If Yin Peng and the others stayed in the nightmare world, they would be destroyed. So, Shao Chun suggested that Yin Peng and the others. However, with so many people in Great Rock Palace, it was obviously impossible for all of them to head to the place of creation. They could only send a small number of people, while the others, like the people from the Sacred Palace, found a place to hide first. This was the best plan for now. Yin Peng only thought about it for a moment before agreeing. He knew that although Shao Chun had forced Hu Huang to retreat, news of this would soon reach the ears of the primogenitors. After the experts of the Great Rock Palace left, Yin Peng brought his family and the ancestor realm experts of the Great Rock Palace to find Shao Chun. There were not many people, less than 20. Seeing Yin Peng, Shao Chun asked, "Have you dealt with everything?" Then let's go. We'll wait for a while longer. When the time comes, we'll truly face the origin world." After saying this, Shao Chun contacted Little Green. With Little Green's permission, everyone entered the land of creation. Naturally, they did not need to go through the soul channel like Shao Chen did. Little Green could directly open the entrance to the land of creation. After receiving Shao Chen's message, Little Qing quickly opened the entrance to the land of creation. A door of light appeared in the Great Peng Palace, and this door of light was the passage to the land of creation. Everyone entered in a single file, and it didn't take long for the entire Great Peng Palace to become quiet. Right now, the land of creation was definitely the safest place. Even the primogenitors would find it difficult to attack the land of creation. As such, Shao Chun could only truly be at ease if his family stayed in the land of creation. After everyone entered the passageway, the door of light disappeared, and Shao Chen's group left the dark awakened world. Please add this to your collection, monthly votes, and recommendations. Sword Master 8 Desolations.